This is Han Si-ha, the tamer who saved the Empire from the Dark Mages. He was summoned here with absolutely zero magical talent and was destined to be a villain fated to die. In his life before being summoned, he was actually a vet, and thanks to his expert knowledge because he became an incredible dragon tamer. He had just one main goal, to graduate from an academy where only 10% ever make it. Throughout his journey, Han Si-ha was hated and ridiculed by everyone at school. With no magic talent, he was looked down on as a total failure. But by taming creatures that others considered impossible to handle and dominating competitions with his unique taming skills, he proved himself to be the strongest in the academy. And just like that, he began rewriting his destiny from villain to hero. This guy got summoned into the world of his favorite novel. He thought he'd end up as the hero, or at least some overpowered character. But just his luck, he woke up as Han Si-ha, a talentless villain with absolutely no skills, who's destined to die right at the start of the story. As he was walking towards his doom alongside the Black Mages, a system notification popped up telling him to run for it. Without a second thought, he slowed his pace, and the moment he put some distance between himself and the Black Mage, he sprinted away as fast as he could. But during his escape, he ran straight into a locked gate. Even though he's got plenty of mana, he has zero skills, so when he tried to cast a spell, he obviously failed miserably. Suddenly, a small creature emerged from the shadows and walked right up to him. As he picked up the tiny dragon, an alert appeared asking if he wanted to tame it. Sure, he possessed a character with no combat skills, but in his past life, he was a vet who knew exactly how to handle animals, so he decided to use that to his advantage. Once the taming process was complete, he gave his very first command, "Open the gate." The moment the dragon snapped the lock, the Black Mages caught up to them. Han Si-ha tried to make a break for it, but he got snagged by the mage's spell. Pinned to the ground, he ordered his new pet to end the mages' lives. The little dragon incinerated them, reducing the mages to ash and saving his master's life. Finally, Han Si-ha managed to escape his tragic fate. After hours of wandering through the desert and nearly dying of thirst, they spotted an old man with a wagon who helped get them out of that wasteland. At the prestigious Armal Academy, everyone looks incredibly polished, surrounded by luxurious facilities. It's basically a school exclusively for the elite. But then our protagonist rolls up, stinking, wearing dirty rags and riding in a wagon. Selen, the professor's assistant, tells him he's already running late. She had already been briefed about him beforehand, knowing he was involved with dark magic and that she needs to keep a close watch on him. Everyone in the classroom is staring right at him, but Han Si-ha had only one thing on his mind, and that was surviving until graduation. Finally, the professor walks into the room. He takes a good look at the students and remarks that this batch looks promising. The age range at this academy is between 14 and 19, and the competition is so cutthroat that only 10% of students actually manage to graduate. The professor announces that the exam is starting now. A system window pops up in front of all the students, telling them to pick 3 items and take the written and practical tests. Han Si-ha knows Professor Grint's exam won't be a walk in the park. To kick things off, the professor draws a lot to see who goes first. The professor picks up the ball with the first name and shows everyone that the first examinee is Han Si-ha, approaching the list of subjects with a strategic plan already in mind, deciding to skip practical subjects and those that seem grim to avoid risks. Questioning our hero about the difficulty of the subjects, though he tries to hide his concern, pointing to hydrology studies, finding it difficult but being theoretical, he only needs to memorize. The other students laugh at his choice, mocking that seemingly bad decision. Continuing the mockery, the hero accepts it due to his reputation and quickly chooses the rest. Suddenly, a new idea strikes him upon seeing another subject that seemed quite viable. Our protagonist is in a deep mental library, like in a flashback. Remembering that in the past he was a veterinarian and recognizing subjects similar to his field. Returning to the library, he considers hydrology since old formulas could be applied. Then grabbing another book, prepared for the next subject and focusing on proceeding. Reading titles like Anatomy and Basic Taming, clearly related to his past life. Passing by a student and observing him, but our boy seems focused on his studies, and the little dragon was quietly hidden inside his bag. Waking up, the little dragon comes out of the bag, and Subai seriously thinks about using him. Then he pushes the dragon back inside since there are too many people around now. Leaving the reception but thinking that having a dragon without mana would be very suspicious. After leaving the room, our hero finally arrives at a place saying, "This is it," notifying that this is the ideal spot where the little dragon can run free, for they were in the underground training dungeon of the Ardell Academy, and as our boy has understood the theory, now it was time to synchronize the taming. Approaching the reception, he asks for a ticket to the beginner practice room. The lady confirms the request, but finds it strange that he brings a dragon to the beginner room. Still, she asks him to provide the names of the 2 who will enter the place. Introducing himself, our protagonist freezes when it comes to saying the little dragon's name. Seeing the situation, the receptionist directly asks the creature what its name is. Staring at its owner, the little dragon makes the boy understand that it wants to be named by him. The creature wriggles all over, making the hero realize it wants a cool name. First suggesting Yongari, but the dragon doesn't like the idea at all. The second option, Carcharodontosaurus, also doesn't please due to its demand. After thinking a bit, our boy has a brilliant new idea for the name. Then suggesting Basilisk, and seeing the little dragon love the new name. All happy. The receptionist registers the dragon as Basilisk and informs that there are already people inside. Moreover, she offers a weapon rental, which, being free, isn't very good. However, our boy decides not to be picky and takes what he has, saying he is ready. As a magical portal opens, the system announces the entry of Han Si-ha and Basilisk at Gate 1. As he crosses the portal, his eyes widen as he can't believe what he sees, because the training room is actually a giant forest with impressive quality. While walking there with shield and sword, he soon spots something moving ahead. It was just two slimes in cube form, finding their appearance quite dull, then showing the creatures to Basilisk to see his reaction. With a smile, he tells the dragon that now they will take care of all the monsters there. Hiding, our hero crouches behind a bush to observe the movement. Meanwhile, Basilisk seems to have awakened its instincts, attacking the slimes. Seeing that his partner is fine, our boy thinks it's also time to practice. Suddenly he hears a growl from behind that puts him on high alert. Our protagonist then turns around, startled, not knowing what is about to happen, but he manages to block the surprise attack just at the moment of impact, wondering what that huge horde of slimes appearing out of nowhere is, thinking he needs to eliminate all of them at once to survive. Our hero asks Basilisk if it's ready, seeing the little dragon react excitedly. Subai tells Basilisk to do the same explosive attack they did before, and points to the slimes, indicating the target for the little dragon. Preparing, the little dragon gets ready for the fire attack, while Subai shouts to blow everything up. Basilisk unleashes a massive jet of fire, burning everything in front, wiping out all the creatures at once with that power, leaving our hero surprised by such destructive strength. Praising Basilisk for the good job and saying they will continue clearing the area. Half a day later, the place is filled with defeated slimes while Subai wonders if it's over. Feeling exhausted and thinking that alternating between taming and attacking is too tiring. Looking at Basilisk and thinking about how well the dragon obeys him now, and thinking of giving the little creature a treat when they return, but someone shouts in the background. Our hero then gets up from the ground, confused, and looks around for the voice. But suddenly another loud scream catches his attention, making him turn quickly, seeing a girl running and screaming desperately with a dog. The girl looking quite irritated with the creature's escape and wondering who is there, continuing to yell at the animal while Subai observes the whole scene. Realizing then that it's a hellhound and that she shouldn't treat it that way, the girl tells the creature to sit, but it doesn't obey and keeps running away, telling the dog to come back immediately but being completely ignored by the animal. Irritated, she wonders where the creature has run off to and starts searching for it, and swears she will catch it at all costs in that forest, when she sees another person taming the creature with great calm and care, and that person is none other than our protagonist acting calmly. Then she approaches the hellhound that is with Subai, asking him if the dog is hers and saying that's not how you tame a beast. The girl is shocked by his audacity and asks what he meant, explaining then that if the tamer gets excited, the hellhound gets even more so. She is shocked because she can't believe that Han Si-ha is giving advice. After all, she is Adela, an earth mage who has never placed below third, and even being a commoner and ignored, few could match her skills. However, due to the exam lottery, she got stuck in the subject she was weakest at, and knowing her taming skills were poor, she came to practice so she wouldn't fail. But her opponent was Han Si-ha, who couldn't tame even a slime in his first year. Moreover, there were rumors that he was obsessed with dark magic and quite strange, having herself seen him lamenting on gloomy days and finding that odd. However, she is confused by the scene, wondering what the hell is happening, because the hellhound was completely calm and docile, receiving affection. Approaching, she asks how he did that. Seeing the boy act naturally, he says the creature is calm now and that she can take it back. Then she picks up the hellhound, feeling awkward about the situation, thanking him somewhat shyly and wondering why he chose a hellhound. Our hero says that a hellhound is a pretty tough choice for a first training. Adela explains that because it's difficult, the score is high, and she needs first place, joking that she thought she liked mud baths, leaving Adela furious with the joke, but she wonders if Han Si-ha has always been this different and bold, because the boy she knew was totally different from this one with a dragon. In the end, she ends up following him, thinking that maybe she can get some taming tips from him. taking our boy and the girl back to the area where the slimes were before. And apparently the place has reset because the slimes have already appeared again around there. Understanding, Adela realizes it's a training field where one hit is enough to win. Then she draws her sword, preparing to show her combat skills. Charging at 4 slimes quickly to attack the duo of students. Without wasting time, Adela charges forward and strikes the first monster with her sword. With a single precise blow, she manages to burst the red slime effortlessly. However, the attack was so strong that it created a large tear in the ground. Observing everything, our protagonist comments that her approach is quite brutal and direct. Then, asking if she enjoys burying things alive, leaving Adela speechless. With a smile, she asks if he wants to be buried along with the slimes. But suddenly, a slime appears behind her, causing our hero to react instantly. With a magical attack, he explodes the monster, saving Adela from the surprise attack, pointing out that the monster had been chasing her the whole time. Feeling embarrassed, Adela covers up by saying that of course she already knew that. Turning around, our boy prepares to leave with his dragon, but Adela actually had no idea about the monster and is shocked by its precision. Wondering who he really is while a strange aura begins to surround them, questioning our hero if there has always been a trap there, and she says she doesn't know. Suddenly, the ground starts to move, making them realize that something is very wrong. It seems that some ancient magic has been activated at that very moment. Meanwhile, a wizard informs the director that there is a problem in the beginner's dungeon. Worried, the director is concerned about a possible spell error and asks who is inside. The wizard informs him that it's Adela and Han Si-ha, leaving the director desperate, thinking that Adela might be fine, but for Han Si-ha, it might be too late, because a talentless guy has no chance of surviving in a faulty dungeon. Due to the error in the formula, the monsters become much stronger than normal. With that, Han Si-ha's chances of coming out alive are practically nil. Inside the dungeon, the scene is chaotic, and our hero tells Adela to prepare. Violent attacks echo throughout that dangerous place. Yet, Adela and our boy face whatever comes their way. Complaining, Adela says that the faulty slimes have left all the grass burned and blackened, getting irritated because no matter how many they take down, they keep appearing non-stop. Our hero comments that despite everything, she seems surprisingly fine, noticing that her taming skills are basic, but her earth magic is advanced. Then he remembers that Adela is the earth mage destined to become a great sorceress. However, he dismisses the idea, thinking that earth mages are quite common around there. And most importantly, he knows that Adela wouldn't be in such a simple training field. Adela gets annoyed with our hero, calling him creepy for just watching, calculating that 3 hours have already passed and wondering about the lack of news. But Adela explains that time in the dungeon passes slower than outside. Understanding, our boy realizes they will have to endure for a few more hours. However, with so many monsters around, he thinks this is practically impossible. Adela gets irritated with his pessimism, asking if he suggests waiting to die. The protagonist replies that of course not, turning around with a confident smile. Having a plan in mind, he asks Adela to buy him some time. She gets annoyed having to deal with the slimes alone while he disappears. But our hero ignores her and keeps walking without giving much explanation. Threatening him, Adela says that if he doesn't fix the situation, she'll take him down. Hearing this, our boy is sure she's not a bad person. Calming his dragon, he assures her that he has a plan for all of this. Moving away, our protagonist prepares what he needs for his plan to work. Remembering that in the original novel, this event served to show the difference in power. But since Han Si-ha failed in the novel, our hero finally finds what he was looking for. He then asks Basilisk to gather all the glowing vines it finds around. In the original story, Han Si-ha used this method and ended up getting cursed by the readers. However, our protagonist doesn't think he was so foolish to deserve that fate. Meanwhile, Adela continues fighting against the slimes non-stop, being at her limit. Wondering what Han Si-ha is doing that takes so long to return and help. Suddenly, our hero appears, shouting that everything is ready for action. Turning around, Adela is shocked to see that he has built a giant barricade. Holding his dragon in his lap, he calls her to enter the barrier he created, hurrying her because the slimes are already regenerating and they don't have much time, using the simple method of attacking from afar, but the original failed in 2 points. Only now our hero has the ability to control both fire and amplification. Focusing, he begins to prepare a powerful spell with his magic. Wielding his wand, he channels the energy to launch the attack. And with the command arrow, a powerful magic forms in the air, thinking that with the magic active, he just needs to add fire to that giant arrow, calling then Basil and saying that it's finally his turn to shine, both entering in perfect sync. Ready for the attack, Basil preparing to unleash his most powerful fire blast yet. The dragon shooting his fire at the arrows after our boy's command, and getting everything ready to shoot them at the enemies, forming a storm of fire with the combination of both attacks, imbuing our protagonist's wand with even more magical energy. The remaining slimes left confused as the attack approaches, exploding the magic intensely like fireworks. The explosion so strong that Adela needs to cover her face to protect herself, being shocked as she can't believe that magic came from Han Si-ha, our hero explaining that the remains of the slime she buried explode with fire, and that's why in these situations, just unleash a fire spell and everything is resolved. Adela realizing that he planned everything and confirming that the vines don't burn, our hero telling her that now they can rest and wait for the rescue to arrive. However, Adela not understanding why he saved her and what the reason is, our boy teasing her, asking why she's staring at him and if she's grateful. She admits that she's a bit grateful since in the end he saved her, feeling satisfied and saying that if she's really that thankful. Then he asks with a mischievous smile for her to do him just one favor. Adela surprised by the sudden request, asking what kind of favor, agreeing as long as it's not a weird suggestion since that wouldn't help, turning our protagonist around and asking her to keep all of that a secret, requesting her not to tell that he tamed her dog and made the barricade. In short, he wants her to keep secret about everything that happened inside Adela, finding all of this quite strange but still agreeing to the odd request. After the conversation, our boy crouches down, finding several slime orbs on the ground. Later, the dungeon was cleaned up, leaving the teachers confused by the mistake, and as a reward, they gave items to the students who closed the dungeon without injuries. After everything, being called to the principal's office, our hero thinks the items will be useful, but that's not what's important now, calling Basil to analyze his progress, showing the dragon's status window that he leveled up, improving his skills. Additionally, gaining resistance to poison because of the slimes from the dungeon error, not knowing what the dark wizards were creating, but seeing that Basil is special for he is not just a dragon, but a pup with excellent talent for combat. His growth rate and mana control being incredible, making him a powerful monster, and since he's now in his hands, our boy decides he will raise him properly, calling then Basil and asking if he knows what he has in his hands. Our protagonist showing the slime orb he picked up in the dungeon before leaving. And even though the girl treated it like trash, he knows it's a super rare item, making the little dragon make a disgusted face while our hero offers him to try it, insisting that it's delicious but seeing Basil refuse to eat that weird thing, the dragon looking at the orb suspiciously, but our boy keeps insisting. Finally, Basil gives in and eats the orb all at once with a not-so-good face. Suddenly, Basil's eyes widen as if feeling something strange happen, then starting to run and scream around the room, making the hero realize the taste was bad, but he waits patiently because he knows what's about to happen. A system notification appears, showing that Basil's stats have changed, for the slime orbs increase the stats of whoever consumes them quite rapidly. Basil stops running and looks at our hero upon noticing the subtle change. With the instinct to get stronger, he jumps into the bag, starting to eat all the orbs, relaxing our protagonist and enjoying the sound of status increase from the system. Suddenly, someone knocks on the door, making our hero wonder who it could be. The door bursts open, and Adela enters, shouting Hansiha's name, quite irritated, finding him sitting, making the boy wonder if she also came to receive the items, Adela complaining that he doesn't care about her taking all the credit alone. Our hero saying he doesn't mind and asking her to speak more quietly, for to him, preserving life is more important than earning reward items. After all, a nearly failing student closing a dungeon would be way too sensational, turning to Adela and telling him to keep the charm because she doesn't want that from anyone, but asking our hero why she talks about charm since he doesn't even know who she is, irritating the girl and holding him, saying it's impossible for him not to truly know her. With an ironic smile, our boy asks if he needs to know and asks for her name, the girl becoming all shy and surprised but saying her name right after, and completing that, her name is Adela Stivia, leaving our protagonist shocked, repeating her name and leaving. Her confused with the boy's strange reaction, for he remembers that Adela is the mage who buried Han-Si-ha alive in the original story, asking her if he knows her while the hero thinks she is his future assassin, reflecting our boy on the exchanged words with the person who will one day eliminate him. And while he wonders if he is hastening his end, she questions him if he looks in the mirror. Then she tells Han-Si-ha to look at himself because no one goes to the principal's office all messy. But when he sees himself in the reflection, he realizes he is also all dirty and hurt, thinking that his filthy and careless appearance makes him look pathetic now, and remembering that people avoid him not out of fear but out of disgust for his dark appearance, deciding then that for now he will fix his hair and change his appearance. The atmosphere in the classroom being quite lively and full the next day. Suddenly, a familiar figure enters the room, catching everyone's attention, whispering, The students wonder if with that hair he could be Han Si-ha, but dismissing the idea since that face couldn't belong to the dark Han Si-ha. Sitting down, our hero thinks he can hear everything they are saying about him. Then someone approaches asking if that guy is really the Han Si-ha from before, asking a red-haired boy where he got the polymorph treatment. Recognizing the protagonist, he is Creek, a peasant with an inferiority complex. In the story, he bossed Han Si-ha around to satisfy his ego and feel superior. Provoking him, Creek says that just cutting his hair won't change his pathetic way, but surprising the hero, he says there's no reason to ignore or treat him well, then opening his bag and thinking that if there's something he can believe in, it's the dragon, calling our boy Basil and scaring the redhead when he sees the dragon come out. With Basil on the table, he challenges Creek to ask again, with an intimidating look. The student's shocked and wondering how he got a red dragon, accusing him. Creek says he was expelled from his family and is filthy rich, but questioning our hero if he really thinks he can tame a dragon with money, then saying he won't live like a loser but also won't take a beating silently. Irritating Creek with the audacity, but being called a stupid peasant right away. Finding it easy how the rival fell for the provocations and asking if he has tamed a dragon yet. Then he provokes him asking if he is afraid the little dragon will bite him, denying Creek and saying he's not that dishonorable in that situation, challenging him then and saying if there's a problem they should settle it once and for all, suggesting our hero that they settle the score with the results of the opening exam. Accepting Creek the challenge and saying the winner will be decided by the grades, with the bet made. Our protagonist smiles because now he has one more reason to win. Then a few hours pass quickly that day, remembering that the redhead shouted that if he lost, he would bark like a dog, walking confidently since he has already mastered the art of cleaning up his mess, recalling our hero that in his past life, he was a mad dog against injustices. Back in the present, a student confronts him about the bet made with Creek, provoking him and asking if they can expect to hear him bark like a dog, thinking Subai that people always pick on those who succeed in any world. Then our boy turns to the blonde and asks what his name is. Introducing himself, the boy says he is Fabian, Den Edwin, and gets angry for not being known, reminding our protagonist that he was the noble who mistreated the weaker ones. Then he commands his dragon, Basil, to bite the boy for real, Fabian getting scared when he sees the same little dragon appear, Basil flying towards them and making the two run away in despair, screaming the duo of bullies while fleeing from the little dragon through the academy. Already in another place, someone comments that the rumors about him are quite crazy, warning the person not to mess with royalty, but the hero says he just retaliated, observing Adela from afar and finding it interesting that he faces royalty without fear. With a smile, she thinks he seems cool, but wonders if he has a plan, saying Adela that he lost his fear because he bet with Creek besides biting the others, calling him then reckless and extending a hand to help him get up, asking with a smile what would have happened without her help before reminding him of the agreement and saying that this will be the last duel before the exam. Then she challenges him saying that if he defeats her, he might be able to defeat Creek too, accepting our boy the challenge and saying that this time, it won't be so easy. Then Adela charges at him with everything while our hero creates a magical shield, the training being so intense that it causes a great explosion and ends the duels. Time passes until the long-awaited day of the opening exam finally arrives. Calling the professor in the exam room, the student Adela from the magic department, completing the test in 5 minutes and 31 seconds, earning an A grade observing from afar, and thinking our hero that with her teachings she tamed the dog, then calling the professor for Han Si-ha while our boy says he is ready, the taming test happening inside a magic cube to which the protagonist walks, the rule being simple as he needs to fight against a virtual monster, and if he wins, he passes, announcing the professor that he chose Cube C, and starting the test with Basil. Then a giant creature resembling a serpent suddenly appears inside the cube. Our boy being shocked by the monster and wondering if it is what he thinks, for the creature in front of him is an Adeptheon, being a giant and very powerful monster. Remembering that in the original novel this monster only appears around the 3rd year, our hero telling Basil not to be scared and encouraging him to test his new strength, reminding the little dragon that he got stronger with the orbs and preparing to fight, giving Subai the first order for his partner to get very close to the monster, for he remembers that the weak point of serpents usually lies in the creature's eyes. Then he warns Basil to be careful and prepares a spell to distract the serpent. While our boy attracts the attention of the beast, Basil flies straight to the blind spot, the little dragon facing the giant monster, preparing to attack Basil, preparing a powerful attack against the creature with all his energy. Soon after, he fires a blast that hits the giant serpent's eye dead on the creature falling to the ground, completely defeated by Basil's precise attack. Professor Grint, who was watching everything, being shocked and speechless by what he saw, thinking that an Adeptheon is a monster that even a 3rd-class mage would struggle against. our hero exiting the cube thinking about the power of the orbs while the professor was stopping. With a confident smile, he asks if defeating the monster counts as a pass, Professor Grint being completely unresponsive to our boy's incredible feat. Then the professor announces that Han Si-ha finished in 12 minutes, achieving this grade. And after the exams, the result of our hero became the main topic of the academy, congratulating Adela for the impressive grade that put him in first place, our boy saying that their training was worth it and she agrees shyly. But for our protagonist, this achievement was actually a big problem, for his goal was to place 15th in the school to avoid drawing attention, wanting only to live a quiet life and following the novel where the monster was defeated. Our hero complaining alone, but Adela hears, finding it strange he talks to himself. Then she asks him how he did on the arithmetic test they had earlier. Adela complaining that the exam was ruthless, making him realize her difficulty. Our boy thinking that he only got one right on purpose, shocking her who thought it was bad. To him, it was just high school math, but Adela continues complaining about the questions. However, suddenly our hero realizes he made a very serious calculation mistake, for Adela comments that if he gets one question wrong and loses first place, he loses the scholarship. Asking then if he solved the 27th problem, and our boy confirms, stopping the girl from walking and asking what he meant by that confused. Our protagonist questions if he accidentally said something wrong. Smiling, she asks if he really solved problem 27 by himself, Adela saying that this was the only question she didn't solve, leaving Subai in shock, remembering then that even though it was difficult, he solved the question without thinking much. Meanwhile, a teacher announces that only one student in the whole school got it right. Then the professor says he designed the question so that no student would get it right, revealing shortly after that, the only one to achieve the feat was Han Si-ha. Seeing the test, they think he got the rest wrong on purpose just to show off remembering him. The teacher thinks he is someone who plans the future very well. The next day, the exam rankings are posted on the academy's bulletin board. Approaching, our hero checks what the rival Creek's ranking was, seeing that Creek placed 32nd and looking for his own name. With a smile, he can't believe what his eyes are seeing at that moment. For against all expectations, he placed 11th in the ranking. Noticing the redhead Creek that our hero is far behind him and going into shock, approaching the protagonist while Creek stutters his name in disbelief. With a gesture, he calls the redhead to a corner to settle the score once and for all. As they walk away, the students comment that Han Si-ha won and Creek messed up. Following the redhead, our hero is tense, not knowing what to expect from that conversation. Then our boy asks the commoner what 1 + 1 is to test him. Creek answers that the result is 2, but hears that he is wrong. With a smile, he reveals that the correct answer is 11th place. The provocation works, leaving the redhead furious at the boy's audacity, thinking Subai that Creek hasn't improved and continues to fall for easy taunts. But deciding he doesn't want to see anyone barking, he has a better idea for the bet. So our hero flicks Creek's forehead to seal his victory. The redhead gets irritated, complaining that this wasn't part of their agreement, telling the boy to shut up and saying he was mistaken if he thought it would be simple. And as he walks away, he tells him to meet him later in the abandoned clubroom. Already in the clubroom, he says he has something for the redhead to do, being questioned right away. The hero says it was out of consideration not to make him bark, irritating Creek. Then the redhead asks what our boy wants him to do once and for all. But before speaking, our protagonist asks if he knows who his father is. Creek feels a bit awkward with the question but confirms he knows who he is. And referring to Han Tai-su, the founder of the empire that defeated the Dark Wizards. Accusing him, the redhead says he is using noble status, but the hero says he only asked because he didn't know, thinking that Han Si-ha comes from a wealthy family and getting closer to speak the main point, then revealing his plan and asking the redhead to spread rumors around the academy, whispering something in Creek's ear that leaves him shocked by what he heard, asking Creek to tell all the academy students as quickly as possible. After giving the orders, the hero leaves, leaving Creek thinking he is crazy. Changing the scene then to the imposing mansion of our protagonist's family. Knocking, an employee at the door informs the Count that there are news from the academy, asking the man who seems to be Subai's father how his son is doing. This being Count Han Tai-su, our boy's father, who calls him his pathetic son. The employee saying the situation is tough since the Count only pays the tuition fees, explaining that the Count cut the rest because suffering is necessary for him to wake up. Moreover, threatening that if the son mentions dark magic again, he will end him. But interrupting, the employee says it seems the hero has changed and got a good grade. The Count thinking it was just enough not to come in last, but being corrected. And to the Count's shock, he reveals that the boy placed 11th, also mentioning that his reputation has changed, and now they say he is handsome and kind, leaving the Count completely unresponsive to the bizarre news about his own son, wondering if our hero blackmailed someone to spread these rumors. However, the employee says one thing is certain and there are no doubts about it. Then agreeing, the Count acknowledges that young Master Siha is indeed changing for the better, remembering that his son dabbled in dark magic and that it was quite tough to correct him. However, if he really has changed, it's good because he is the only heir of the family. Keeping this in mind, the Count seems to make an important decision about his son's future, deciding that if the son goes to the magic department at the ceremony, then he orders to notify that all financial support will be fully restored. Meanwhile, our boy is impressed in front of the magical stones counter, for he heard that his allowance would be restored and went to check the results. And with that amount, he can live comfortably for the entire semester, thinking then that his plan to spread rumors worked perfectly. But Adela calls him for the promotion ceremony, and our hero agrees. For at the academy, second-year students are assigned to a specific department, being the first one about magic that offers many practical opportunities to the students. Then having the natural sciences department that mixes magic with research, while the theology one deals with spiritual magic, prophecies, and divinations. And finally, the necromancy department where black magic is studied illegally, starting with the rector earnest the ceremony and asking the students to touch the die, detecting this tool available to each one and defining their specialization. Our boy feeling tense since in the novel, Han Si-ha went for necromancy, having the original Han Si-ha used black magic to step on others and being defeated, wondering then if the die will give the same answer this time. With a clenched fist, he fills himself with determination to change the future, refusing to have the same end while Li Han prepares for the test. The other students excited as expected. Li Han took first place, observing our protagonist the boy from afar and recognizing him at once. For that guy is Li Han, the protagonist of the novel Academy of Souls, thinking about how life is unfair and lamenting not having reincarnated as the hero. Then Li Han extends his hand to calmly touch the magic die, the die shining intensely and announcing the system the magic department. Our hero, thinking he was already expecting this, since it was the protagonist's fate, then calling the rector by Solia Arcanet and being recognized at once, she being the light mage of the novel and the closest ally of the protagonist. And to no one's surprise, she is also assigned to the magic department, continuing the ceremony with the remaining students being called in ranking order, announcing the rector that Seymour Parker went to the necromancy department. Soon after Yahello being assigned to the theology department. Our hero feeling nervous as expected, the familiar names go first. Then finally the rector calls for Han Si-ha to come up to the podium. With his heart in his hand, our boy walks slowly to his turn in the test, remembering that in 3 years the necromancers will rebel and be defeated. That's why our protagonist prays that his fate is not the same as in the novel, and with all his strength he begs not to go to the necromancy department. Meanwhile, the students whisper that he still has a reputation for dealing with black magic, then floating the magic die and shining intensely in front of the hero. The rector catching the die in the air but surprised by the red color emitted, staring at the object not quite understanding what that specific color means, and in his eyes an intense red glow reflects the energy of the magic die. To our boy's relief, the rector announces the magic department, the other students shocked by the result and starting to gossip about him. Our hero complaining about the stares as half are curious, and the other judges him. Suddenly congratulating him, Adela says they will see each other in the magic department, then asking if she was hoping he would go to the same department. With a bright smile, Adela confirms yes, feeling all happy with the news, leaving him her answer completely awkward and not knowing what to say at the moment. Our hero saying it's not a problem but asking to let him know before arriving. Explaining that he didn't want to fight against him but being interrupted by a call, confused, our boy turns not knowing who could be calling for him there. To his astonishment, it was Li Han, the protagonist of the novel, congratulating him on the result. Panicking and wondering why Li Han is talking to him, taking the fear into account, since in the original story the two were mortal enemies, commenting that Li Han being a surprise, he is interested in the magic department, then extending his hand and saying he hopes they can work together in the future. While Li Han smiles confidently, our boy is sweating cold with the situation. With no other choice, he shakes hands with his future enemy and agrees with him. Then Li Han asks if our boy is really feeling well, soon after getting closer and saying he heard Subai got stuck in the dungeon. Finding that intriguing, he asks what magic our hero used to get out of there. Our boy feeling tense as he knows that guy is not someone easy to deal with. Moreover, wondering how he knows about the incident since it was a secret from the teachers, for Li Han is a meticulous protagonist believing that evil must be eliminated. With a nervous smile, our protagonist begins to fear the worst with the situation, wondering if Li Han already sees him as a dark mage to be defeated. After the ceremony, our hero walks away still thinking about what happened there. And while walking to the new dormitory, he tries to forget the strange conversation. Upon arriving, he is impressed as the interior looks like a 5-star hotel, searching for our boy in his room in that huge and luxurious place. And after a while, finding room 203 in building. Carefully opening the door, not knowing what he will find inside, but upon entering, he is completely shocked by the scene he sees in his new room. For inside the room, a red-haired boy stares at him and shouts Han Si-ha's name in shock, confirming to the protagonist that this is his name and asking why he is surprised, saying the boy is his roommate and calling him the star of the ceremony, feeling embarrassed by the compliment and not understanding the fame he gained. For after the ceremony, Fabian confronted him for entering the magic. Then our boy whispered something interesting to scare him, a little questioning him about his royal lineage and leaving Fabian shocked by the revelation, suggesting then our hero that he should stay quiet to avoid being discovered by everyone. Hearing this, Fabian starts to cry and makes excuses for the situation, irritating our boy because his plan to be a model student is going down the drain. Back to the present, remembering that he still hasn't introduced himself to his new roommate, introducing himself as one and saying he also went into magic. However, our hero is surprised because, coincidentally, he knows that name, for it is the most reliable ally of the protagonist, Li Han, in the original story. Besides being a well-connected informant with a vast network of contacts, asking one then why he is so shocked by that. Sighing, our boy says it's nothing but is questioned about the reason. Then one invites him for a tour of the dormitory to get to know the place better, showing a map and saying it's more fun to explore together, and the hero agrees. Arriving then at the cafeteria of the dormitory while one presents the place to him, but commenting that the upperclassmen prefer to eat out, and the hero asks why. It turns out that the nutritionist loves to experiment, making the food quite strange. Then going to the outdoor magic training field, explaining one that it's dangerous because there's always someone who gets hurt during training. Deciding then our hero that it's better not to get close to that dangerous place. Noticing despite the comments that one is a great source of information, finding one quite useful, and deciding the two should return to the room after the tour, but suddenly the sky starts to darken with clouds appearing on the horizon, wondering the protagonist if it will rain, but noticing something very strange, for that was not a storm cloud, but something covering the entire academy, starting to fall a strange rain, and one saying they need to alert the teachers, but the hero stops him right away saying the situation is much more dangerous, leaving Juan confused while Subai says he finally remembered something, for he recognizes that scene in the black rain staining the academy's lawn, and knowing that this rain is not ordinary but rather filled with a lethal poison, shouting for someone and making all the students run desperately for shelter. However, knowing our protagonist that the smoke is just a distraction for the threat, suddenly someone shouts, warning that some students have disappeared, asking for calm our boy and asking who went missing, hearing that it was Adela and Solia, understanding upon hearing the names that the second main episode of the novel has begun, for the kidnapping incident in the dormitory has finally started. At that moment, a system window appears giving the mission to find the students, detailing that the mission is to find the students with time and hidden rewards, and while the dark rain continues to fall, the entire academy goes into total panic, quickly changing the scene and showing a dark and sinister forest. And in the forest, we see Adela and Solia tightly bound, Adela getting irritated and trying to free herself, but the vines don't budge at all, warning Solia not to waste energy because the vines are quite strong and won't let go. Moreover, saying she has already searched for a weak point but hasn't found a solution yet, agreeing Adela and wondering why the guy in the black cloak locked them up there, then seeing in a flashback the dark mage binding them with dark magic, not understanding Adela why she is a target being a commoner without power or family, remembering then when she was trapped in the defective dungeon with our hero, and wondering what Han Si-ha would have said in that situation to solve the problem, feeling embarrassed right after for thinking of him at that moment, getting irritated because he would be sleeping while she is in danger, interrupting Solia and saying she has a hunch about the tree's weakness, believing she that the tree they are trapped in seems weak against light, reminding Adela that the last thing they saw was the black mist covering the sky, explaining Solia that it is an artificial cloud that blocks all sunlight, moreover, blocking the tree that rises to the sky from the sunlight on purpose. However, understanding that in this place the light is blocked but having a plan, praising Adela for her intelligence and saying that she will also fight to help, for the magic that attacked them is dark magic and only a specific magic can combat it, and being the best weapon against darkness, the light magic, as its purification, thinking Adela that Solia's purification is still weak but deciding to trust her. Breathing deeply, Solia, and preparing to use all her energy in the magic releasing with a command her light magic to purify the tree from the inside out, starting the vines to shine and spreading the energy of light throughout the structure. Wondering Adela if with that amount of light the magic will work, but a voice emerges telling them to stop that nonsense. Suddenly Solia is shocked and unresponsive to what is happening, and before she can do anything, she is brutally attacked. Seeming to have been hit, Solia is left with no energy at all, asking the voice if she really thought that would work, and saying that it doesn't matter the potential because they are just inexperienced students. Then the poor girl starts to suffocate from the attack. While the black mist enters her mind, the voice tries a sweet proposal, promising to restore her fallen home and bring glory back. For it knows of her suffering and that she has reached her maximum limit. Then the voice offers power to revive her home, asking if it isn't tempting, shaken by the offer and thinking of her lost home. But Adela screams desperately for her to wake up soon, and not to be swayed by temptation trying to control herself, impressed. The tree says that even without mental magic she freed herself, then says she will make a proposal, and Adela thinks it's great because it diverted attention. Knowing that it is a mental magic that reflects desires and can be overcome. Then sending the tree to show its desires but challenging its capability, provoking the enemy to come out and buying time for Solia to wake up. Irritated, the tree asks what the girl said to her, and tells the girl not to delude herself because this form is already enough, not being able to dodge the attack and asking for help from someone. And suddenly, a beam of golden light hits the tree squarely, colliding with the light magic and asking if Solia was the author. But one appears with Solia saying that she hasn't overcome the brainwashing yet, thanking our hero for the tip and saying that the effect was quite clear. Adela is shocked and asks how he found the place and used the light. Joking, our boy says she talks a lot for someone who almost kicked the bucket, explaining then that light magic is basic and he just amplified it with a magnifying glass. Asking the protagonist if she is okay, and Adela nervously denies, saying then that it's good to hear that while grabbing a sword and soon after handing the sword to Adela and calling her to fight, holding the sword, surprised by the boy's sudden attitude, saying that this is the training sword he used to use and teasing her, reminding her that she likes to bury things alive, then taking the sword and saying that was exactly what she wanted, and since the opponent is a dark mage, she won't hold back in the fight. Groaning, the dark mage in pain, and our hero wonders if he will reveal himself, then revealing his face and looking quite irritated with the situation. Provoking him, our boy asks if he wants him to poke his other eye out, swearing the mage that he will take care of those brats once and for all. Blocking the space, the hero realizes that he wants the favorable ground, the mage regaining his strength and preparing to attack with all his power, calling them immature brats and launching a powerful attack. Feeling a headache, our hero hears whispers in his mind, the voice saying that he is worthless and a failure abandoned by everyone. The protagonist realizing that it is brainwashing magic and finding it unpleasant but not letting himself be shaken and questioning the mage who is shocked, explaining that the words do not affect him because he is no longer the same as before. The mage getting irritated because the brainwashing should have worked on him. With a smile, our hero says it's simple because the mage is weak and he is not. The mage getting angry, our protagonist realizes that he is already merged with the tree being an ancient lattice that enhances mental abilities. Calling then, Basil, the hero says that the solution to all this is quite simple, asking Adela if the tree is weak to the light and she confirms, confused, revealing then that the trees are also naturally weak against fire. Calling our boy Basil and preparing both to attack the wizard, releasing the little dragon a burst of fire that collides with the wizard's attack, causing the collision, a great explosion that shakes the whole place. Embracing Basil our hero and feeling relieved for having reduced the impact, but suddenly the roots of the tree come close to him without him noticing, and before he can react the roots are cut in the blink of an eye, stepping right after Adela on top of the roots in a victory pose and saying that now our boy owes her a great debt. Breathing a sigh of relief, the hero thinks he almost broke, but Adela calls his attention, saying she is doing her best but they need a final blow. Meanwhile, one helps Solia who seems to have regained consciousness, but knowing that if it's our hero, maybe he can resolve the situation. With a smile, she asks if she is wrong to trust him, confirming our protagonist with a nod and saying she is not wrong. Suddenly the sky darkens and the weather begins to change again. Strange to the wizard, the rain, and thinking it was a magical mistake by the kid, celebrating then, because if the light disappears, that place will be his domain again, and trapping our protagonist's feet thinking he fell into the trap, giving our hero a smile while the wizard can't believe he fell for the bait. wondering the wizard if he has gone mad, but seeing the boy draw the wand, and with a command he prepares a very powerful lightning spell, intensifying the magical energy around in a frightening way, hitting the wizard's attack squarely and leaving him shocked by the power, and with an explosion of lightning, the wizard is completely defeated, protecting our hero's face while the debris from the tree falls, not believing the wizard that such a basic spell could have so much power, blaming him our hero while Subai recognizes the final words of a villain, saying the wizard that he needs to find the cube and making the hero wonder what it is, shouting then to the wizard and asking what he is talking about, remembering that the cube was mentioned in the novel, but Solia appears asking if it is him, turning then to face the girl who approached. With a smile she praises him for the strategic command, saying they need to talk, saying Li Han with everyone gathered that he has heard a lot about Celaya thanking our boy than her for the help she gave during the battle, but saying Celaya that actually it is she who should thank him, for he used the rain to put out the fire and the humidity for the lightning, moreover saying that if it weren't for her defense magic, he would have been fried, praising Solia's defense commands and being shocked by the bold magic, moreover thinking that it seemed our hero already knew everything about light and that now she sees him in a new light after all this. Being then, Adela questioned about why the wizard kidnapped the two, explaining one, that the plan was to use them as servants, and Subai understands everything, thinking that kidnapping students for brainwashing was an impressive plan. But suddenly Basil starts to cry, and our protagonist calms him down, questioning then why the creature exaggerates if it was him who got hurt, provoking him Adela and saying that Basil is worried because he is a clueless tamer, embracing then our hero, his dragon, and relaxing with the whole situation, thinking he finally understood what is really happening there. Realizing our hero that this is the feeling of having achieved something as a team, reflecting on the problem he never felt in his past life and how they helped each other, complaining the hero in another place that the creature is very clingy. While Adela and Solia rest on the tree, our hero continues with, one thinking our hero, that even with the poison dissipated, the area is still not safe, but knowing he came there for a reason and finally finding what he was looking for, being the reason to find the hidden door that leads to a secret place in the academy. Approaching then, and touching the stone wall that seems to hide the passage, opening the wall to one's surprise and revealing the secret passage, reminding our hero that in the novel Hansi Ha found this hidden treasure, and being he a step ahead now, all that treasure is just his. With a smile he celebrates because even a pathetic villain needs to make a living, leaving one impressed with the discovery and asking if that has an owner, disguising our protagonist the nervousness and saying that the owner is long gone, explaining then that he learned in history that ancient tribes left statues there, suddenly shouting Basil and making our hero not understand the creature's reaction, and being surprised to see the little dragon hugging a gold bar, remembering the boy who liked cheese and wondering if he enjoys yellow, then telling Basil to take as much as he wants while one asks to take some too, responding to our hero that he will share the treasure with him and making Juan excited, finding our protagonist a small wooden chest among the gold, thinking that surviving is more important than luxury, and for that he needs power, and knowing that this box is what Hansi Ha obtained after defeating the wizard, then opening the chest while one asks what that tattered item is, one being shocked to see that it is a book of black magic, asking our boy to drop the object because it might be cursed. Taking the book, Subai says that one's thought is a misunderstanding, the book then shining and transforming into a book of basic magic, notifying the system that the book changes according to the user's preferences, telling our protagonist to read the title again and leaving him confused, realizing then that it is a book that adapts to the user and finding it quite useful. With a smile, he celebrates because he hit the jackpot with that rare item, being a spellbook that recommends the most necessary magic for the user, meaning that he can learn all the magic from the academy at once. Our hero asking if they can leave while one asks for one more bracelet, calling him then Basil and saying it's time to go up because the others are waiting, but suddenly feeling a very strange presence in the place. A mysterious voice calling him strange and making him turn around quickly, wondering if he is the only one hearing that because one doesn't seem to notice anything, staring confused at the shining book in his hand without understanding, finding it strange to be called strange and starting to suspect the situation. The voice then saying that all his actions will reshape the world, realizing that his actions can really change the original plot of the novel, and remembering that originally he shouldn't be there with the protagonists, being in the original story, just a character who ends up defeated, understanding then that he shouldn't have survived and that his fate was different. Our hero comprehending that this is the prophecy book Carmen that sees everything and everything the book says becomes reality no matter what happens, wondering if if he should stop interfering, but knowing that it was greed to come to the academy. But the voice of the book continues to echo in his mind, calling him strange. The voice then saying that if this is his role, he must accept it without hesitation, for then he will be able to guide the miracles that flow and change destiny. And if he does nothing, the world will follow the path of irreversible destruction. Suddenly feeling weak, our hero faints, wondering if this is the price. Waking up sometime later and hearing Juan say he was shocked by the fainting. Apologizing the boy and asking his friend to let him rest alone. Agreeing Juan and saying he will go to the store to buy something for them to eat. Sitting on the bed relieved as soon as his friend leaves the room. But soon his thoughts start to get quite complicated with all that, thinking that his actions caused a butterfly effect that could hinder the heroes, and with that, the Dark Wizards could win the war in the end. Perhaps the Ardal Empire could end up falling because of him in the end, realizing then that if the world is destroyed, he also won't survive. Wanting to live quietly, but if the fate is to stir things up, he has done that before. Remembering that in his past life, getting involved with others only brought betrayal and despair. That's why he never wanted to live that way again, wishing for his own end. But if the world can end, he can't ignore that feeling in his heart. Turning then, in bed while still seriously thinking about everything, and asking himself why he thinks about getting involved in all this again now. After all, he knows he will end up facing everything, being the only one who knows the story. Understanding then that he is no longer Han Si-ha, but who he is now. Discovering the academy after the culprit was a wizard and covering up the case. Being one and the hero punished for going out, but praised for saving the girls. The boy thinking that this will be a hassle and that it would have been better to be paid. Moreover, the first task of the practical magic class is announced for everyone. And to our hero's total despair, the task will be a group project. Imagining our boy. How a group project is where there is always someone slacking off, because there is always the busy guy and the person who just copies everything without understanding anything. Thinking that group projects are worse than hunting dangerous monsters, the task consists of returning with dungeon items, earning points based on difficulty. However, if he fails due to the short time, the risk of getting a 0 is quite high. Waiting for the professor then, for everyone to show excellent teamwork, and to everyone's shock, announcing that the formation of groups will be completely free, having only 10 minutes to choose and getting bored with the situation. But suddenly someone calls him, making him turn to see who it is. And to his surprise, Li Han asks if he wants to be part of the same group, leaving our boy completely confused and speechless with the unexpected invitation. While the other students whisper, not understanding why Li Han invited him, asking with a nervous smile if he really wants to do the project together. Approaching confidently, Li Han makes the hero prepare to respond. And, without hesitation, he says no, as he thinks it would be too much of a burden. Feeling hurt, Li Han reflects on the word burden echoing in his mind. Juan and Adela laugh at the situation a while later, as they didn't expect such behavior, questioning why he refused since having Li Han is an advantage. Changing the subject, the hero comments on the new academy uniforms. Excited, Juan agrees with him, happy about the new look, explaining that the colors change by department and everyone looks like a team now. Ending the conversation, our boy says it's time to decide on the dungeon, then suggesting the Ghost Forest, a rank B dungeon, and Juan agrees, but explaining that the mission's success depends a lot on the items they can gather, and warning that in the forest there is a secret rank S item, shocking the whole group. With that, they could defeat the other groups and still earn extra rewards. Asking Juan how he knew that, and hearing the excuse that he read it in books. Everyone agrees to go while the boy thinks that being versatile suits him. Knowing this because in the novel, Li Han found the reward in the 3rd year. But knowing that to dive head first into this world, he needs to be prepared. Time passes until night falls over the academy, discovering a group of rival students who chose the Ghost Forest as well. With a sinister smile, one of them says that this works very well for their plans, now needing to prepare a bit for what is to come. On the day of entering the dungeon, our hero and his group gather in the library, since most dungeons are in open spaces near the academy, but the Ghost Forest can only be accessed through the Ardell Academy Library. One recounts a rumor that ghosts escape from there, but Adela doubts it, when someone says that the rumor is actually true, scaring the girl, screaming desperately upon seeing the boy who explains he is just an ordinary person, asking our hero who he is while Adela tries to calm down, questioning why they are there since the tie isn't from the magic department. Introducing himself, the boy says he is Usher Barton, a first-year student, and saying he came to join them in the dungeon, but the hero finds the name strange, because they say he is a freshman with exceptional talent for divination, promising he won't be an obstacle and asking to accompany them, questioning our protagonist if he has seen anything about the dungeon. leaving the boy surprised and making the hero realize there is a purpose there. Suddenly, a girl appears saying they shouldn't be so suspicious, scaring Adela while the girl says Usher can see ghosts and be useful, introducing herself as Yoon Ham and saying she came as Usher's guardian, and explaining how the hero hoped Usher saw something in one of his visions. And since then, he insists on following our protagonist wherever he goes. She then says she got permission from the professor to accompany the mission. Our boy is suspicious of her but hears Yoon say the reason is him. She becomes all flustered while the hero asks why she is there. And to everyone's shock, she says it's because he is completely her type, leaving our protagonist speechless with the sudden and unexpected declaration. She starts complimenting him, saying she found him super handsome since she saw him. But whispering, one says she is a collector of handsome guys with high grades. Then everyone agrees to go to the dungeon since she doesn't seem a threat, reminding our boy that the condition to open the barrier is to remove a book. And upon doing so, the passage to the ghost forest finally opens. Bothered by the bright light of the portal, young Usher covers his eyes immediately. And this is the entrance to the dungeon, with a bright and eye-catching blue portal. Meanwhile, Basil growls in fear, making the hero think he bumped into something. I'm selling the confusion of the creature. Our boy picks it up to calm it down. With his dragon in his arms, he then decides it's time to enter the dungeon. As soon as they enter the dungeon, magic explosions occur throughout the forest. Shouting for Adela to advance, he sees her charge forward with her sword. And while she fights, our boy watches everything from afar to provide support, remembering that Professor Grint always spoke of the importance of teamwork. For the special item to enter the dungeon is a single blindfold for the eyes, and without this item, you can't see the ghosts, making a team without cooperation fight over it. But our hero thinks they had already decided who would wear the blindfold. That's why he assigned scouting tasks to Adela and Juan for being more agile, while Solia and Basil handle the dark monsters with their fire powers. With his magic, our boy finishes off the ghosts, thinking the plan was perfect. Watching everything Yoon and Usher find it impressive how good our hero is, wondering how he can perceive the ghosts without having theology classes. Usher then has the certainty that the revelation he received was not wrong, for he saw that the stranger from the magic department is actually the guy destined to save the world from all evil. Suddenly, Usher notices something wrong, and soon after, he shouts for our hero to be careful of an energy from the right. Then a dark aura suddenly surrounds the entire group. Feeling the pressure, our boy realizes it's very different from facing normal monsters, as a skeleton appears, being the dungeon boss that uses psychic attacks, asking Adela if Solia and the hero are ready because the boss is about to attack. Then the monster unleashes a powerful attack. Our protagonist is shocked by the speed and power of the monster's attack, but he calms down as he realizes it's a mental attack and not a real physical one. Suddenly, our hero finds himself alone in an empty space, recognizing the technique as the Void Room but finding it quite strange. For a rank B dungeon boss shouldn't be strong enough to use this magic. And while he wonders what is happening, he hears voices accusing him of having eliminated someone. The voices continue to torment him with regrets and apologies that aren't his. Our protagonist is shocked as he begins to understand what is happening, wondering if these are his real memories from his past life. It turns out that even after so long, those bad memories remain the same, and remembering that others called him a psychopath and said not to mess with him. But our hero never regretted it because he only did what needed to be done. For him, all those people who judged him were simply horrible. Denouncing a psychopathic doctor who used abusive practices and took innocent lives. That's why he exposed everything to the professors and the entire university hospital. And even knowing that the guy had many contacts, he didn't care at all. Because of this, in every hospital he went to, everyone avoided him like a snitch. And over time, the situation only worsened for our boy, calling a colleague to the operating room but receiving no response at all. As his hands began to tremble uncontrollably, he couldn't control the movement, and while he panicked inside, he wondered why this was happening, prohibiting his boss from entering the operating room and calling him useless, explaining to a doctor that his repressed emotions caused the tremors in his hands. With no solution, he wonders how he got to such a desperate point. Completely alone and at rock bottom, he feels utterly hopeless. Moreover, the voices of the other doctors haunted him, calling him incompetent. Over time, the looks and voices completely drained his mental strength. That's why he ended up leaving the hospital for good on his own. And the name on that badge was Han Si-ha, the same as the novel he read. Realizing that his name in the past life was the same as the villain in the novel, thinking our boy was fine since time passed, but maybe he is still the same. However, suddenly a light appears and catches his attention immediately, and the light came from Basil, who was growling loudly, trying to protect him. Our protagonist is shocked and wonders how Basil got in there, not understanding how his companion invaded the monster's psychic attack. But Basil keeps growling non-stop in that darkness, and our hero finally understands that the bond connects the heart of the mage and the monster. Realizing then that Basil felt his negative emotions and came to find him, embracing the dragon and joking that he looks like a dog for being so loyal. Our hero then understands that his choices in the past were not out of rebellion, but rather out of his sense of justice and not wanting to succumb to injustice. However, Basil starts pointing, making the boy wonder if there's something over there, when our boy is shocked, asking what that is in front of them, and that something was a hidden item resembling a heart with a lantern inside our hero, then realizes that since they are in the monster's mind, they can see the invisible, and to his surprise, the lantern was actually the core and heart of the monster, meaning that if they take that out, they can defeat the boss for good. Then asking Basil to lend his strength one more time for the attack, covering himself, the little dragon is engulfed in flames, ready to unleash all his power. Our boy combines his magic with fire, creating arrows of light and flames, and with the command, triple arrow, he launches the attack with all his might, hitting the lantern squarely and making the monster scream in pain. With the blow working, our hero manages to grab the lantern, which was the core, and with the secret item in his hands, the light begins to change color. Smiling, he says that the old movie session has finally come to an end. Back in reality, Adela screams and asks if he really defeated the boss, and the system confirms that they completed the dungeon, leaving Juan amazed, saying Juan that he can't believe the secret item existed because he thought it was a bluff. But Solia interrupts and says that something strange is happening over there, because the Void Room shouldn't appear in a rank B dungeon, and now that they think about it, even the secret item is hundreds of times stronger, realizing then the hero that it wasn't just intuition and asking where the others are, leaving Juan surprised, because they were right there and suddenly disappeared. A voice then saying for them to come over, and a group of hooded figures appears, and one of the guys says that if it weren't to protect him, he would have already dealt with them, asking a girl to one of the students if he was close to the children, and asking them to give a chance to prove their true feelings. Then the girl tells them to hand over the boys who are behind them, another boy saying for our hero to join them at once. Finding it ironic, our protagonist thinks they are completely crazy, the boy asserting that if he joins, the project will be a guaranteed success, explaining that he needs our hero's help because they are short on people. Everyone's shocked to hear that his project is demon summoning Adela, wondering if the necromancy folks are really serious. Remembering that our hero was with Seymour Parker until the first year, then she suspects our boy and wonders if he is on their side. Anxious, she asks him to say that the demon summoning isn't true. With a smile, he says that the conditions are tough, but maybe he can help our hero, then lists the ingredients and says they need a suitable medium. Adela confused by the conversation, asking what this medium means. Ignoring her, the boy says she wouldn't understand such trivial magic, revealing what is essential for demon summoning. Being essential, a strong human who can host the demon within themselves, asking if our hero thought they strengthened the dungeon boss for nothing. Adela getting furious because the human needed for the summoning is a powerful mage, becoming even better if the victim belongs to a sacred lineage. Praising Seymour, our hero says he is easy to talk to, then extending his hand so they can work together again. Shaking our boy's hand with the necromancer to seal the deal. But suddenly, an electric shock hits Seymour, who screams in pain, falling to the ground, completely paralyzed, staring at our hero in disbelief, releasing our protagonist's hand, still with some sparks of lightning. Our hero saying that the plan was good, but he let some things slip, revealing that the first mistake was trusting too much, and the second was underestimating him. Seymour getting furious because he can't believe the boy dared to deceive him, getting up and accusing him of turning his back for being in magic now. And since things have reached this critical point in the conversation, swearing that he will use our hero as a sacrifice and launching his attack. Adela running worried and asking if our boy is okay, feeling relieved and thinking that even while training, she still cared. Smiling, he asks if she was worried, and Adela confirms that she was. She says that if it were real, she would have annihilated him, leaving him speechless, realizing that the lightning wasn't strong enough because Seymour is the main villain, knowing that the rival will grow and asking Adela to hold the others. Noticing that Seymour is focused on him and agreeing to help the boy, preparing Seymour and launching another attack with his dark magic. However, our hero creates a magical shield to defend himself in time. The attack hits the shield and cracks it, but Seymour doesn't stop attacking, wondering our boy why he is so strong before growing Seymour saying that he shouldn't have faced him and throwing the wand, then grabbing the hero's neck and telling him to think carefully about his position. Knowing Han that it is difficult to go against the novel and defeat Seymour now, however, thinking that there is a small variable in that whole plan. that variable being the little Basil who throws fire at the necromancer, hitting the fire squarely on Seymour's back. Catching him by surprise, Seymour screams in pain with his clothes on fire while the hero thanks Basil. Suddenly, an important notification from the system appears on the screen. Surprised because Basil reached level 10 and unlocked a new ability. Our hero is shocked by the perfect timing of that event, but soon realizing that this is actually very good. A column of fire and lightning emerges from Basil's attack after the command, screaming one, that if it weren't for Solia's shield, they would have been fried. Our boy falls to the ground exhausted because the magic was very tiring. Moreover, he can't control Basil's power when he gets excited. Seymour emerges from the flames without seeming impressed by the trick. Wondering our hero how he withstood that powerful blow, Seymour swears he will finish him off while preparing dark magic. Our hero is left not knowing what to do in that difficult situation, but suddenly Seymour is unexpectedly hit from behind. The surprise attack works and makes the necromancer fall to the ground. Confused is our boy because the girl is also a necromancer and attacked him. She feels relieved because her grandfather's protective shovel worked perfectly. Approaching our hero and asking if he is okay, starting our boy's vision to blur and recognizing the girl. She screams desperately for him not to faint and to stay awake, but after using all his strength in the dungeon, the hero faints right there. The necromancy club is suspended and the rest of the team goes to the infirmary. Back in the room, they wonder what the result of the group project was, and to everyone's surprise, the professor announces that they totally crushed it. The class is shocked because they were the only team to get a perfect score. Our hero gets irritated with the new rumors that have emerged about him, and after going through all those hectic days, he now finds himself in the underground prison of the academy to resolve a matter. Then he walks to a cell because he heard someone wanted to see him, and upon looking inside, he comes face to face with a very familiar figure. It is Seymour Parker who stares at him with an ironic smile. The necromancer asks if our hero came to see him cry in prison, but our boy says that he will get out of there anyway. Seymour thinks all of this is a big joke and doesn't believe him. However, the protagonist remembers that his father wouldn't leave him there or disown him. Irritated, the necromancer grabs the bars and asks if he is done talking. Then Seymour questions what he is doing there and asks to get straight to the point. After a moment, our hero simply tells him to take something, and then he hands a mysterious envelope to the necromancer, explaining to the boy that his father will come to get him out of there in the name of the family, but warning that his family is famous for expelling those who embarrass them. Seymour is left speechless by our hero's words. With a smile, Hans says that he does not fear dark magic, but rather being disowned. Then telling the necromancer to send the letter if the situation gets tight because it is a fake letter claiming blackmail from the dark magic organization. Seymour is amazed because the letter looks almost perfect and convincing. With that, the story of the unlucky necromancy student would come to an end. Then asking why our hero is giving that to him, and questioning why someone at the academy would help him so much that way. The hero replies that someone at the academy would help him anyway. Moreover, he took the symbol of the Dark Wizards organization. Already in the dean's office where our boy is calmly drinking tea, the dean asks if he delivered the package correctly, saying yes and taking a sip of tea right afterward, also thanking the dean for all the help he has given recently. It turns out that upon waking, the dean called him and gave him an unprecedented reward, but what surprised the dean was the plea for clemency for Seymour Parker. Understanding that Seymour is the leader of the Dark Magic Club and a key piece, explaining that the hero Seymour becomes stronger when driven by revenge, and if they expel him, he might take a worse path using talents for evil, but by being lenient, the club dissolves and Seymour can be guided correctly. Meanwhile, the boy thinks he is just protecting himself against revenge, when someone stands up and says they fully agree with Han, and it was the blonde girl named Natalie who hit Seymour with the shovel. Recognizing her from the novel and wondering what her true identity is, she then apologizes for not explaining earlier what her role was, revealing that she was an observer of the dean infiltrated in the Black Magic Club, explaining to the dean that having a legitimate place to research black magic is important. However, the demon summoning plan was a secret shared only by a few, and it was only after entering the dungeon that she understood the whole situation, thanking our hero, because without him she wouldn't have fulfilled her role, telling our boy that she did that to save herself, but she thanks him anyway. Then the dean says he has a special proposal for him. Our boy feels a bad premonition but listens to the proposal, inviting him, the dean, to represent the academy at the International Research Society, trying to refuse, our hero suggests, sending the best students in his place. However, the dean says that Professor Grint gave extra points for his contribution, and that's why he is in third place in the magic department ranking. Clapping. Natalie is all happy with the unexpected news. Meanwhile, our boy remains shocked to be in third place in the ranking. Then he complains because his ranking has risen and now attracts more attention. Commenting, one says that Solia would be upset for losing third place. Sighing, our boy didn't want to stand out at all, and to cheer him up, one suggests opening the personal dungeon reward. These are the rewards given to those who complete the dungeon besides the secret items. Our boy gets excited to see if he can get a top-tier item. With all his hope, he opens the chest hoping for something good. Upon opening the box, our hero and his friends are completely shocked by what they see. For inside it, on a fancy cushion, was a large egg with blue spots, revealing the system then that it is a Terra egg of rank A, a legendary creature. Remembering then, our boy, the drawing of the creature he saw in one of the books. One gets excited saying he will be a tamer of the skies, but is told to shut up. As time passes, they are already at the Magical Research Conference in the Seinen Empire, a place for knowledge exchange where the most talented wizards gather. Additionally, there are fierce school competitions at stake for the honor of the country. While traveling, Adela asks if our boy knows anything about herbalism, reminding her that the dean encouraged them to participate as it is a good experience, but also remembering that he pressured them to bring some prizes home, saying Li Han that they had herbalism classes in the first year and must manage. Then he suggests they study the book carefully until they get there. Han calls him a model student while Adela shyly goes out to get drinks. While Li Han watches her go, our boy thinks about how she ran off alone. Suddenly, Li Han calls our hero, who turns to hear what he has to say. Remembering then that when he visited his room, he saw a map, and our boy confirms, asking Li Han if he has the map, and the hero says yes, as it would be risky to leave it there. Remembering the boy that Li Han turned pale upon seeing the map, and that's why he is there. For the reason behind all this is a very powerful and mysterious item called the cube. It turns out that dark wizards use these artifacts to turn the game in their favor. The cube is an amplifier that can turn any wizard into a great wizard. In the novel, the wizards build a tower and gather the cubes to attack the world. Fortunately, the heroes destroy the tower, but many characters end up departing in the process, and the place where the first cube appears is precisely in the Seinen Empire, where they are now. As soon as they arrived in the Empire, they went straight to the research conference hall. There they participated in several classes, including herbalism, which is this year's theme. They then spent a very busy time participating in various activities and events, and 2 days later, the competition is finally scheduled to start the next day. Throwing himself on the bed, our hero decides that for now, he will just rest a bit. Suddenly hearing a strange noise coming from somewhere nearby, he quickly turns around and asks who is there at that moment. To his surprise, Li Han appears at the window and praises him for noticing him, asking our boy why he didn't use the door, and hearing that there was Casper in the hallway, realizing then that Casper are the wandering wizards who wear invisibility cloaks. Questioning the reason for that and hearing that Li Han came only to ask for a favor, then asking our hero to deliver the map he has kept in his hands, directly asking if Li Han wants the map because of the mysterious cube, surprising Li Han while our boy pretends to be silly mentioning the written word. However, knowing our hero that Li Han already knew the truth about the cube from the start. For a long time, his parents sealed the power of the cube but were eliminated by the wizards, realizing therefore upon seeing the map that the dark wizards were moving again. Thus, the protagonist of the novel made his decision to continue his parents' legacy, saying that he needs to find the cube and asking for the map, but having the request denied, Li Han being shocked, but hearing that the map cannot be delivered at any cost. For in the original story, the first cube ends up being taken by the dark wizards. Remembering Li Han's regret, and knowing that without the cube, the difficulty increases. That's why he says he cannot give the map, but can accompany him on the dangerous mission, then firmly asking Li Han to take him along on this journey, explaining to Li Han that the cube is a dangerous item and he doesn't want to drag him into this, but our hero saying that he never took the easy path and that he won't be a burden. Moreover, remembering that the map is his, and leaving Li Han with little choice. Agreeing Li Han finally, but imposing a condition to accept the help they need to win the competition tomorrow at all costs. For after that, there is something important they need to do together anyway. Seeing the next morning, the whole group gathered in the competition hall, sitting down our hero, Li Han and Adela, while they wait for the event to start. Remembering our boy what Li Han told him in secret the night before, saying that after they win the tournament, they will invade and steal the cube. Confirming that the map shows the location of the cube on the 3rd floor of the basement, but knowing that entering the magic department won't be easy due to strict security, and being a direct approach very difficult. He says there's only one way to succeed. being to win the tournament since the winner gets an exclusive tour of the department. Our hero saying that they will have to infiltrate, and Lee Han agrees, making our boy a proposal and leaving Lee Han curious about what it would be, suggesting to take Adela with them since the two alone won't be enough, finding it hard for Lee Han to hide it from her, but remembering that the tour is for 3 people. Our hero saying not to worry because she will love hunting dark wizards. And on the day of the tournament, he realizes he's screwed and starts to panic, for he knows absolutely nothing about herbalism to compete for real. Resigning himself, our hero, and realizing that the man on the podium is the professor, introducing himself, the man as Bruce Miller, the absolute authority in herbalism, explaining that the essence of herbalism is the magic that can save others. Bruce then saying that he will explain the rules of the tournament that everyone was waiting for, the challenge being simple since they need to create a new potion that never existed before. Bruce warning that to win they need a perfect score from all the judges, worrying the other students since the judges are skilled and demanding wizards. Our hero waiting for that, but finding the task more open than he thought. However, knowing that he cannot fail now since his goal is much greater. For winning the tournament is the only way to get closer to the cube and save the world. That's why he takes a deep breath and prepares, since he has no other choice but to win. A few hours later, Adela asks if he really is a dropout in herbalism, saying that he barely knew the content of the book and wondering how he will win. Staring at her, our hero, just without giving many explanations about the subject. The professors drinking the potion sometime later and feeling incredibly good. Feeling one of them a huge desire to create and becoming all mystical and powerful. Another judge saying that the potion is fun and that she can't wait to create something new. Feeling more creative with his primary magic being activated at full force. Then asking the professor what the name of that potion called the Potion of Art is, revealing our hero that his secret was putting alcohol in the potion mix. That it wasn't real alcohol but rather herbs from the Sidon Empire to give aroma, transforming the unique potion of battle magic into something artistic and rebellious. Arriving safely at the magic department for the tour as a result, saying Professor Bruce that he hasn't been impressed by students in a long time, praising the group and saying that with the tour, they can expand their knowledge. Continuing Bruce then the tour and showing the civil affairs office. Finding Adela and Lee Han, the tour boring, while our boy complains about the discouragement. Thinking our boy that the professor doesn't understand they are in a hurry, interrupting him for that and asking to take a short break to rest. Explaining our hero that the department is large and they are tired. Suddenly calling a teacher by Bruce and asking for help for a moment. Asking Bruce then to wait there while the group quickly agrees. Turning to our hero as soon as he leaves and looking at his friends very seriously. Asking then if they located the basement door and receiving confirmation. Saying Lee Han then that they need to hurry because the guards may arrive, needing they with only one chance to find and grab the cube at any cost. Calling them Han because they haven't been caught yet and asking them to come closer. Handing over 2 teleportation scrolls in case they need to escape from there. Warning that most of the guards are on the 4th floor where the main vault is, asking our boy about it, and Lee Han says he couldn't find more because they are rare. Saying that since the 2 are there because of him, it's fair they keep the items. Telling our hero then to go together and Lee Han agrees without hesitation, going all together to the vault to try to resolve the situation once and for all. Wondering if that is the vault and deciding to take a closer look, but suddenly stepping on a hidden wire on the floor without realizing it. Starting a loud alarm to ring immediately throughout the corridor, Adela entering in panic and asking what they should do now. However, our hero says with all certainty that this is definitely the cube, leaving Adela confused, while the hero can't explain but is absolutely sure. Suddenly a system notification appears right in front of our boy, saying the message that the system made it impossible for him not to know. Being the mission to recover the first cube with a time limit of 24 hours, not being able to ignore the mission that appeared at that critical moment. Sounding an alert and warning that an intruder has been detected in the restricted area, activating an explosive magic around the vault as a security measure. Lee Han then shouting for them to run while a big explosion happens, lowering the smoke after all that destructive impact in the corridor. Getting up from the ground all hurt and hearing footsteps approaching in the smoke, and while he wonders who it is, he sees a person approaching in the darkness, and to his surprise, it was Professor Divert Grunui from the mathematics department, trying our hero to make an excuse but hearing that he doesn't need to explain because thanks to them the cube was finally located. And to everyone's shock, the professor reveals to be an infiltrated dark wizard, explaining that he let Casper loose and that it was lucky the students found him. Then he coldly asks if they will get out of the way or if they prefer to leave this world right there, releasing his dark magic and telling them to stop fighting. Adela trying to defend herself but seeing the attack go through her barrier, helping her Lee Han and making the boy realize the huge difference in power. fortunately managing to grab the cube that rolled from the broken vault, then throwing the teleportation scroll to Lee Han and telling him to grab it. Along with the scroll, he throws the cube, shouting for them to flee from there, asking Adela what will happen to him and hearing the shout to hurry up. Facing Lee Han, the girl who seems reluctant to leave the hero behind. Irritated, she tells him to come back safely, and the two are teleported away, saying the professor that stealing the cube in front of him makes him interesting, deciding that he can't let him escape now, no way, binding him with chains and saying that even without the cube, he still has the map. Responding our hero that he has nothing of the sort and that he is mistaken, calling him then a scared boy and questioning where his confidence comes from. Smiling, our hero says that his confidence comes from his partner, then shouting for Basil to attack and seeing the little dragon unleash a burst of fire, the professor screaming in pain from that sudden surprise attack. Taking advantage of the moment, our hero quickly breaks free from the chains, the professor becoming furious with the escape and complaining about the little dragon, wondering the boy if he can finish off the professor once and for all, because for his own good he knows he can't let this professor live, so he runs as fast as he can to try to escape from there. Realizing soon after that he is being surrounded by several dark wizards, the wizard shouting not to let him escape, no way, noticing that the boy's only defense won't be enough to escape, then falling to the ground exhausted as he has used all his mana and can't fight, his whole body aching from the attack he received from the professor. Meanwhile, one of the wizards prepares a magic arrow and shoots it at him. At this rate, he knows he is in danger and may not leave alive. Suddenly, Basil jumps in front to protect him, and the purple arrow hits him squarely. Our hero looks at his injured partner, left without reaction. The dragon falls to the ground, all wounded but still trying to attack the wizards. The wizards realizing he is a tamer and that they need to capture him soon. Our hero runs with Basil in his arms, blaming himself for the injury. Suddenly someone calls him, making our hero turn to see who it is. It was Adela, waiting for him hidden in the bushes nearby, asking him not to die. She says they distracted the wizards and that now they are in a safe place, confessing that she thought he would die while the boy apologizes. However, he says that Basil is in critical condition as he was hit by the arrow, blaming himself for being busy fleeing instead of taking care of his creature. For even being a dragon, any creature with a pierced heart dies, remembering his past memories where they said not to try without a chance. And while recalling everything, our hero felt completely hopeless, but deciding that he needs to try something urgent to save him, then asking for the art potion from Adela, who is confused by the request, holding the potion and saying that the buff allows creating something from nothing, and without thinking twice, our hero drinks the potion all at once, knowing that what he needs now is a small drop of hope, grabbing a scalpel and saying that no matter what happens, he will begin, and swearing that he will save his partner's life at all costs. Watching Adela and Lee Han, our hero starts the surgery on Basil. Adela not understanding why he risks so much for a monster, and realizing that he is using all his magic to heal Basil, thinking then of stopping him so as not to lose him. But something stops her, for upon seeing his eyes, she realizes she cannot stop him at all. Our hero saying that now, it's just to suture the wound and everything will be over, sighing in relief as the surgery seems to have been a success, and remembering that in his past life, he couldn't even enter the operating room, and that's why he fled countless times until he could no longer hold a scalpel. But now his hands, which once trembled, moved with total confidence. Relieved, he realizes that maybe he can save him after all. Basil then stretches, leaving Lee Han amazed by the surgery, seeing Adela's improvement and the hero thinking that surgery on monsters is uncommon, understanding the surprise since the condition was fatal for any creature, and if it were in Korea, he would have been reported for lack of hygiene. But knowing that this is not Korea and that Basil is a resilient dragon, then a system window alerts that the healing light has been applied. Then both begin to be miraculously healed by the system. With that, Han asks for Basil to live and always stay by his side, suddenly feeling weak while Adela and Lee Han shout for him. After losing consciousness, he wakes up seeing a very familiar ceiling, being unconscious for several days and hospitalized in the academy infirmary, assessing the school situation and dealing with the consequences of the incident. Even so, rumors about the attack on the best students spread, thinking the hero that the adults are having a hard time cleaning up the mess. And Lee Han arrives with the cube saying that many organizations are looking for it, Adela saying that they fought hard to get the cube and cannot lose it. Our hero shocked to learn that there will be a trial about the case, sighing then, as things have reached a very complicated point, and with the cube in hand, deciding that he will not let them take it away at all. After a week, someone shouts in court asking for severe punishment, Professor Louis Maxwell becoming furious and saying that the theft is unacceptable, but Professor Bruce saying that there must be a misunderstanding about this, explaining Bruce that it was an accident, but Louis insisting on punishment, then staring at our hero and asking what he stole from the vault. The boy knowing that the items are confidential and no one knows the content. That's why his only strategy is to deny everything since there is no evidence against them. So he says that they got lost and broke the vault by accident. Louis getting irritated with the lie and saying that the vault was empty, arguing that the only strangers who accessed the area were the students. The judge then saying that they will wait for the owner of the vault to arrive to testify. And while they wait, a familiar figure begins to walk through the courtroom, leaving everyone shocked as they did not expect that person to show up there. Surprising everyone with the arrival of director Ernest for the trial, asking Louis what he is doing there and hearing Ernest say he needed to come, declaring himself the owner of the vault while the boy discovers where the director hid them. The director saying that the students were only there instructed by him to take the cubes, then addressing the judge and arguing that children make mistakes, handing the dean the list of items and proof of ownership for the judge. And to Louis's shock, the judge confirms the proof is valid and closes the case, receiving the three a 6th level penalty with a letter of apology and community service. The judge asking if there are any objections while Louis is left speechless by the outcome. Later telling the dean that he will not ask anything about what happened, instead asking our hero to accept a small gift. The boy being surprised as even knowing about the cube, they asked nothing, wondering how much the dean knows about everything that is happening. The note saying that Professor Grunui disappeared to attend a conference, and since then he has not returned to the Ardell Academy, the director admitting that the academy is responsible for not noticing sooner than asking if it was our hero who dealt with the infiltrating professor, and questioning how the boy survived a confrontation with a professor as a second-year student would not be able to face a master and come out alive, explaining that he survived thanks to his partner Basil and that it was pure luck, praising him, the director for his talent and making the hero awkwardly thank him. Moreover, the director saying that he will test his ability with that note, explaining that he found the note on Grunui's shelf being a code in arithmetic, then asking our hero to try to decipher it, making the boy feel the pressure, but wondering if the code could be the location of another lost cube. With a smile, the dean says that this is exactly the attitude he expects from him, that even in the face of an insurmountable challenge, he tries as if it were nothing. Now in another place, we see a girl asking Li Han about the project, saying he still does not trust our hero despite all the suspicion. She retorts that Li Han has already asked about our boy several times, then questioning him if he hasn't shown all his cards to the guy, the girl saying that Byulnim told everything and leaving Li Han without arguments, admitting that he received advice about the cube's location but still suspects. As in the first year our hero was so suspicious he seemed like a dark wizard, the girl saying that he may not be bad but the chance of betrayal exists. With a smile, she says she will not refuse the request of such a handsome guy and tells him to pay attention to the events that will happen on campus, feeling confused about the service and hearing that it's because he brings fresh bread. She then says that Byulnim said something super scary is going to happen. Back in the present, our hero just sighs with the whole situation, complaining to Adela that 30 hours of community service is no joke. Then arguing with Han, who has been cleaning his pteranodon egg all day. Suddenly one appears running and shouting their names in desperation, arriving out of breath and making the hero ask what is happening. One saying that the monster from the specimen room is back, asking Adela if it's real, and hearing that Lil even went to the professor's room. Hearing all of this, our hero starts to become quite thoughtful, starting the story with a scream and a monster in the specimen room of the basement, commenting the students that a monster appeared and a student almost got hurt. But since there was no evidence, the rumor was dismissed and Lilil was embarrassed. Suddenly a system window pops up about the Drake in the specimen room confirming it is real, understanding that the Drake's stealth explains why not everyone saw it. One saying that Lilil caused a stir and that the students are doing ridiculous things. The ridiculous thing being that they want to hunt the Drake for its expensive blood, our hero thinking it's just a rumor and that no one would be foolish enough to participate but regretting it immediately upon seeing that there are far more fools in the school than he thought. Trying a student named Derek to recruit everyone for the hunt, promising rewards. Our boy thinking it's foolishness given the strength of the Drake, but seeing Derek invite Solia, she being totally shocked by the sudden invitation made by the guy, and our hero immediately realizing what Derek's true intentions are. The hero thinking that Solia wouldn't do that as it makes no logical sense, for she does not need money, and her grades are already considered excellent. But to everyone's surprise, she accepts the invitation right away, thinking the others are joking, but insisting that she really wants to participate, then reminding our boy that in the novel Derek gathered a group for this hunt. However, in the original story, Solia was not part of that specific group, recalling then what happened at the end of that tragic episode. For the hunting group never returned, and not a single person survived. After some time, showing Solia in her room writing something, she seems to be completely focused on what she is doing there alone, when she simply rests her hand on the notebook, thoughtful, then remembering a very important lesson from her past. For her father always said that the magic of purification comes from a pure heart. Being he, a noble and powerful mage who built his family with magic and taught her not to show weakness and to use magic without any greed, but apologizing to her father because she cannot follow his teachings now. For the first time, she lost her position to our hero, Han Si-ha, and now lacking confidence that she can defeat him in the next evaluation. However, if she joins the Drake hunting team, she might have a chance to win. Then discovering that the Drake is weak against fire and light and lives in the basement. Moreover, knowing that the other students will only hinder during the fight, and this being her chance to establish herself as the light mage again. Swearing with her own hands that she will seize this opportunity with everything. Already in another place, someone says that this is practically impossible, telling the seer girl that Solia cannot take down the Drake alone and being questioned. Then he pays for the prediction while the girl thanks him for the money, but becoming curious and asking why he wants to know about Solia, accusing him of liking her and making the hero deny everything, embarrassed, thinking he that Solia was his favorite character when he read the novel, but now just wanting to prevent an important character from leaving too soon, deciding our hero then that he needs to act to save everyone there. So in this case, the Light Math Club will spring into immediate action. Already in the basement, Solia is brutally hit by an attack from the Drake, recovering and saying that without her barrier, the damage would have been much greater. Saying a student that they have already had 2 casualties and that the Drake is very strong. However, Derek is shouting that they cannot leave because they have set several traps, claiming that if the monster steps on the traps, it's over, but one student hesitates, seeming the Drake to know where the traps are and dodging all of them. Suddenly the creature attacks and throws all the students violently into the air, Derek being already all injured and not believing, thinking that it is impossible. Suddenly a hooded figure appears in the darkness, watching everything, revealing to be Hughes Stancer, a 5th-year tamer who was already expecting this, mocking the students for entering there recklessly and stupidly, for no one from the Ardell Academy realized that the Drake was being controlled by him, his motive being the fact that Ardell crushed the Dark Mages 15 years ago, revealing Hughes that this is a revenge for his father who fell in the war, then provoking the fallen students and telling them to fight against death. Solia realizing that the others are not moving and that she is the only one left, thinking that from the beginning it would be a solo fight and wondering if she can win, but refusing to die there and deciding to use all her remaining power to fight, preparing with all her strength to cast her magic and begging for it to work. However, someone stops her, asking if she is trying to die and shocking the girl, being our hero, Han Si-ha, who tells her to conserve magic for being the only light one, telling her to be ready to use the magic while the girl finds his presence strange, explaining our boy being sure that someone is controlling the monster, for he is also a tamer, and challenges the other to see who is the best. Then throwing our hero something for the Drake to eat and leaving Hughes confused, stopping the monster from moving completely at that exact moment, not understanding Hughes why the Drake does not obey and what that orb was, revealing our hero that the basics of taming is to understand the monster's habits, explaining that the Drake bites anything that moves quickly in front of it, then asking how the taste of the special orb that induces dizziness was, shouting right after for Solia to attack and aim right at the heart of the Drake, launching Solia a beam of light that hits squarely in the monster's chest, leaving the Drake out of control and making Hughes lose total control, realizing that the monster became furious because its connection was suddenly cut off, deciding with no choice to use the power of dark magic to force the taming, noticing our hero, the aura of dark magic, and being surprised by the situation, thinking he had everything under control, but seeing this variable change his plans, suddenly notifying the system that he awakened the tamer's touch ability, wondering our confused hero what that new ability means, alerting the system right after about the great increase in affinity, realizing that he can now take for himself a monster that already has an owner, asking the system if he wants to temporarily tame the Drake, and he accepts, and confidently stating that he has no reason to refuse the offer, pressing the yes button while wondering if this will really work, entering our hero and the Drake in perfect sync immediately, the Drake becoming completely calm and docile in front of our protagonist, notifying the system that he successfully tamed the creature. The drake walking slowly towards its new master, now bowing the creature to Solia's shock and becoming totally obedient, asking her if it was our hero who tamed the drake, and he confirms, saying that he gets along very well with reptiles and smiling with victory hues, revolting because he worked hard to tame that drake, shouting that the drake is his and trying to use dark magic to get it back, celebrating, even thinking he got the monster back for himself. But suddenly the drake bites him, leaving Solia and our hero shocked, our hero shouting desperately for him not to swallow the guy, resolving the situation quickly after the drake subdued Hughes, reaching Dean Ernest and being shocked to learn of another dark mage, thanking then the dean to our hero for all his hard work, severely punishing the students who participated in that hunt, receiving our hero's thanks for saving everyone and a nice reward, reflecting on everything that happened as soon as he returns to the safety of his room, thinking about the unprecedented new ability he managed to unlock in this battle, allowing the tamer's touch to control any monster temporarily, finding it strange to have gained the skill and handing the drake over to the teachers, as his little dragon became very jealous and hated the new creature, calming his partner then, and asking him never to betray him, but gaining more than a skill, and being notified of the mission reward, wanting he all happy to open his long-awaited loot box immediately, hoping nothing bad comes in his reward at that moment, begging for a rank B item, or higher to help in his journey, opening the chest, and a strong light coming out from inside it, for he obtained a rank, a subspace pouch, and is amazed, saying it is better than he thought, and very useful for combat, realizing that if he were to buy it, it would cost a lot, and feeling all happy. Suddenly the system alerts him of an additional reward for minimizing casualties, understanding that in the novel no one survived, but this time he saved everyone, then wondering if this is a reward for completing in hard mode, finding upon opening the pouch a note about mathematics and recognizing it immediately. However, the formula seeming very familiar for some reason he couldn't remember, shouting suddenly and startling poor Basil with the reaction, for remembering the code that Dean Ernest gave him to decipher before realizing he only needed to solve an equation and not discover the symbols, thus finally finding the answer to the mysterious Dean's code, the answer being the numbers 205 and 14, understanding our boy that it is room 205 of necromancy, arriving at the room and finding the place completely empty and abandoned, the other number being the 14th locker of that abandoned room, discovering then that student 14 left the academy a long time ago, opening the locker and seeing that his suspicion was right all along, finding inside the second cube hidden by the professor, understanding that Professor Divert hid it there and storing it in the pouch, thinking our hero to lay low for a while to avoid drawing attention, but seeing his plans fail as Yoon Hyul calls him very excited, questioning her why he refuses her requests, and if he still likes Solia, becoming irritated with the question and not understanding her reason in the conversation. Yoon asking to go on a date while he accuses her of forcing him, the date being to participate in the astrology contest of theology, questioning our hero if the stars sent her to do that. Explaining she that the contest is basic, and if she wins, she gets 3 credits with the maximum grade, even allowing her to skip Professor Grint's class that semester, Yoon boasting about her skills and saying she is the best in theology, offering a ride and making him realize that the offer is too good to pass up, saying our hero that it is a great reward, and Yoon celebrates excitedly, ending up studying theology, something he never expected to do in life. Time flying as they study for the long-awaited exam, stretching our hero on the day of the exam and feeling a bit strange, calling him Yoon suddenly and pointing at something that makes him tense, catching his attention one of the judges unexpectedly to the stage, and to his total astonishment the judge looks very much like him, physically. Realizing then that it is clear the reason for that resemblance between the two, for that guy is Han Si-ha's older brother in flesh and blood, being introduced the judge as Han Si-hyuk, the brother of our protagonist, regretting our hero immediately because if he had known he wouldn't have entered dressed elegantly. The brother in an impeccable black suit, watching him with dark and piercing eyes and a serious expression, standing out Han Si-hyuk as an external judge for his appearance and reputation, starting in astrology at 12 and becoming the greatest prophet of the empire. And besides everything also being Han Si-ha's older brother, feeling Han Si-hyuk hatred and inferiority for being illegitimate before his brother, remembering that in the novel, Han Si-ha was vulgar and teased him about his position, calling him besides that pathetic for not being a royal family member, thinking our hero that he was the initial antagonist with cliché lines, realizing that his brother still looks at him with disdain and not as family, and as a genius, he must not be happy being able to give a low score, worrying because being penalized would be unfair to Yoon who is on the team, encouraging him, Yoon, and both agreeing to give their best, starting. Then the astrology test totally focused, our hero feeling confused with the test, but Yoon seems to be having fun, using, meanwhile the protagonist, the wand to manipulate the stars, commenting someone that the magic team leads and suspecting of a leak, denying the girl immediately such an absurd possibility of cheating, understanding his concern due to the extremely high score, explaining that Yoon is the best in theology benefiting the duo, telling him to stop with the suspicions and proceed with the awarding, observing him. Then the situation only with a cold look, revealing itself, the winning team of first place in the contest. Being to everyone's joy the winners, Yoon Hyul and Han Si-ha, celebrating, Yoon the victory and the boy surprised because it happened, praising her our hero for having identified the object accurately, understanding that astrology is not just listening to stars, but also math, calling him Yoon a genius and inviting him to theology, but he declines, calling the organizer both to receive certificates and trophies, warning however that Judge Han Si-hyuk wants to see him and making him tense. Waiting he for his brother in a room while having tea, wondering if Han Si-hyuk appeared in this specific episode of the novel knowing, but that his brother would not do anything good and preparing, suddenly arriving his brother and being questioned why he called saying Han Si-hyuk that he has a piece of advice while our hero doubts, accusing him then of using tricks to achieve good results, telling him not to be too conceited since he is not so young anymore. Irritating our hero with the arrogant attitude of his older brother, thinking that his personality matches his arrogant face, asking the brother to get straight to the point and being called impatient, telling Han Si-hyuk that he should stay at the family property during the holidays, irritating the boy with the authority since he got the best scores, sending him away after the message and finding the hero that quite typical, leaving then the room and wondering what the problem with that guy is, time passing and summer vacation arriving after the final exams, throwing our hero the practical magic book away quite relieved, since getting enough credits to drop the class of Professor Grint, calling him suddenly Adela and asking how her exams went, noticing then her bags while he explains that he is going back to his family, saying that they are not close enough to greet each other like that, but remembering that his brother insisted he stay at the family property, then asking about Adela and hearing that the family doesn't like her to return, realizing our boy that Adela's family was never mentioned in the novel, saying goodbye both and agreeing to see each other after the holidays. Then our hero leaves and asks her to take care, arriving at his family's mansion after a while of travel, being impressed with the luxury and thinking that Han Si-ha became a magnate, entering and saying that he is back but being interrupted by a servant and saying he has a direct order from the count for the young master, being the order not to enter until the count gives his permission, feeling indignant because he was barred after returning after a year and a half as night falls while he waits outside, watching two maids waiting for him and finding it persistent. But hearing everything and wanting them to stop whispering about him, suddenly the mansion door opens slowly, wondering what is happening and who is opening the door. And to his surprise, it was his father, Count Han Tae-so, telling him to enter. The boy is astonished as he did not expect to be let in suddenly. Inside the imposing family mansion, now his father sits at the table while several servants serve the banquet. The count says he heard about a scandal that led to a trial, and in a serious tone, he orders our hero to report the facts of the incident, understanding now the boy the reason for being barred at the entrance. Wondering if his father thought he caused another incident and was punished, saying that the suspicion is reasonable and that he is quick with strange news, then asserting he can guess the source of those false reports, for by the servant's attitude, they may have distorted the news about him. Staring at our hero, his father looks him directly in the eyes and asks why he is not curious to know the real reason. Thinking he is talking about an ordinary father and not his own, releasing his aura, the count asks if he dares to teach him a lesson. Frightened, he decides not to provoke further, saying he attended the event, asking the count the reason for his visit and seeing the boy show the report card. Explaining he participated as the school's representative and handing over the paper, the count takes the report card and accuses him of lying right away, reading the grades and being shocked to see he placed third overall. Our hero says he did not cheat as it is hard to do so, and to his father's shock, revealing he did even better in the final exams. The count begins to cry, wondering if his son has finally come to his senses, then says, it is about time he grows up, leaving our hero confused, wondering if that is a character collapse from his father. After that, his father's attitude changed completely towards him, observing the servants who now regard him with caution and respect, and with his father's support, knowing he will have a good foundation for his future. Talking with his father 2 days later, our hero admits his brother was right, then asking to learn about taming while his father orders 10 horses to be prepared. Hesitating a bit, our boy decides to make another different request, having a sudden idea and asking his father for something important, requesting high-quality ground gemstones to feed the Terra egg, adjusting the temperature and humidity to make the process easier, since the Terra egg is rank A, besides being useful for transport, very loyal. However, discovering they are harder to tame than the dragons themselves, taking a newborn up to 2 weeks to be tamed and being quite destructive. Suddenly the egg trembles right before his attentive eyes, leaving our hero quite confused with the whole unexpected situation, wondering if the egg is moving on its own as he hasn't touched it. Then our hero goes into immediate panic with the strange movement, only observing the cracked egg, not understanding what is happening. Suddenly, a huge explosion occurs inside his room. Our hero wonders if he really got a rank, a monster, trying to escape, the little Terra, but our hero does not let it get away. The creature starts to cry loudly with the whole frightening situation. The boy is impressed by the monster's strength, even being a newborn, realizing that the Terra does not respond to affinity since it just hatched, deciding then to use a hypnosis spell to calm the agitated creature. The Terra becomes confused, but sees the magic taking effect quickly. Our hero celebrates as the spell worked perfectly on the animal, taking the chance to imprint his scent on the little monster, carefully trying to make contact so the Terra believes it will not be harmed. The creature seems to enjoy the affection but knowing it will need a week. However, not caring at all about that since he is on vacation, having plenty of time to dedicate to this task. Now one is shocked a few days later in another place upon learning about the Terra taming, praising him as even experienced tamers cannot tame more than 3 monsters, telling our hero to stop praising and focus on what really matters. They find themselves there only for the course registration for the new semester. Observing the magical center where the enrollment happens annually, one asks if he can tell others about his new achievement. Our boy says he does not care at all about the gossip, but is surprised to receive from one a well-planned class schedule, having the schedule with free periods and classes only with well-rated teachers. Giving a thumbs up, our hero says he will use the schedule exactly as it is, saying to one that they must ensure they will have absolute success in the classes. Surprised, our boy is taken aback by the crowd even though it is still very early, being registered at the Ardal Academy in a place called Magic Center, finding there, the students, their unique magic circle to make the registration, occurring the problem that the location of the Magic Center varies each semester, giving a senior the day before the tip of a place with great magic flow, understanding that it is like finding a place with good Wi-Fi in modern times, worriedly thinking that this semester is simple because he doesn't want to see Professor Grint announcing then that there are only 10 seconds left for the center to open, starting the countdown while the magic sphere shines brightly, preparing our hero for the decisive moment of class registration, finally notifying the system that registration for the second semester is open, desperately searching all the students for their courses in the system. Laughing then our boy at the others and calling everyone slow flies, having been at the academy for 6 years and moving faster than anyone, calmly taking what he needs and discarding the rest with total agility, despairing one because he mistakenly signed up for Professor Grint's class, but our hero says he got everything and shows his perfect schedule, questioning the other students how he managed to get such a good time slot, explaining that spending 6 years clicking in a cyber cafe teaches you. However, even with the intense registration, the novel did not leave him in peace. Starting the 4th main episode about the necromancer in the dormitory, remembering then the necromancer and the mission given by the system, dealing with the incident about students who summoned skeletons on campus. Our hero feeling tense because in the novel the incident had many casualties, but fortunately, helping his divine magic and the protagonists to resolve everything, achieving thanks to this a decent reward for his effort. The reward being the Ardal staff, a limited and powerful edition. However, he notices something very strange in his class schedule, and to his total despair seeing Professor Grint in the flying class, panicking because he worked hard to avoid that guy's class, teasing our hero, and saying that his master has lost his mind again. Time passes and the traditional Ardal Academy camp begins, and this year's theme is nothing less than survival. The students being thrown into mountains and needing to unite to live, our hero gathering with the others to start the event. The idea being to interact, but in reality, needing to complete missions. Someone asking what this means in practice at that moment, then a senior shouting for everyone to stand up and line up, explaining our boy that this is the perfect place to intimidate the newcomers, starting the 3rd-year senior Kasan to provoke provoke them immediately, saying that traditionally the newcomers must offer blankets and food, a girl getting upset because they need the food to survive days, the senior then shouting at her and telling her to shut up right away, accusing her of responding and saying her actions are out of line. Then he orders the students in front to hand over all the food from their bags, the students starting to open their bags in fear of the senior's reaction, smiling Kasan satisfied with the obedience of the scared newcomers, and telling them to move faster so they don't get a low grade. When looking to the side, our boy catches his attention. Suddenly, Kasan notices him and asks why he is standing there doing nothing. Sighing, our hero confirms that he will refuse to obey his orders. Kasan, getting angry at the audacity and the hero finding his way funny, calling the senior's attitude completely ridiculous, then realizing that the senior is not bad and has no reason for the bullying, the reason being that the second-year students are excellent and he fears. After all the main characters of the novel are in the second year. Kasan getting irritated and asking how he dares to be so arrogant, then recognizing him and accusing him of being arrogant for climbing the ranks. Provoking him, Kasan asks about the family and if his father treated him well upon returning, confirming our hero with a smile that his father has treated him well, and threatening that if his father finds out about the treatment, he won't forgive him. Remembering that the dean called him for a talk saying that cooperation was important, Kasan left speechless by the threat and hearing that the dean will call the hero again. Irritated, the senior charges at Han with great anger, then trying to hold our protagonist with violence. However, the attack is abruptly stopped before it can hit him. To the shock of the senior, it is the little Basil who bites his hand, sending our hero to stop while Kasan calls him a crazy reptile, screaming in pain and ordering to call the medical team right away, then staring at our hero and swearing he won't let this go. Saying our boy with an ironic smile that he is very afraid of the threat, then asking another student about the things they got back, ordering our hero to tidy everything up and return to the tent, swearing Kasan already in the tent that he will take care of that bastard once and for all, questioning a colleague why he messed with Han Siha specifically, complaining Kasan that he needs to distribute the supplies and that it's a hassle, then staring at the supply bags with a mischievous look, asking his friend Revani if those are the hero group's bags, saying that kids like our boy need to learn a lesson in respect, deciding then that our hero can survive just fine without food, despairing Revani and asking how 5 people will live on 1 bottle, claiming that taking everything but 1 bottle of water is too much, ignoring him Kasan and saying they need to learn the hard way, wishing strongly that our boy suffers a bit in that situation, needing to survive for 6 days the next day to succeed, noticing the other students that the supply bag is too light, having to everyone's despair only 1 bottle of water and some stones, accusing Adela of attracting bad luck whenever she is around him, telling Natalie then to give their best and everyone agrees, arriving at a fork and wondering which path they should take, choosing our hero the left and saying he knows the terrain, lying that he read it in a book, but knowing it was Professor Ernest who explained, praising him for his wisdom while they follow the chosen path, thinking he that everything was going well but soon realizing something is wrong, starting the others to feel dizzy and thinking they are walking in circles, understanding our hero that something is wrong because the professor wouldn't lie, wondering what is happening as the scenery seems to change, someone shouting back to camp that they have a big problem, being Kasan questioned if he took the tracking stone from Han Siha's group, defending himself and saying it must have fallen when he grabbed the food, reprimanding him Revani because the tracking stone is the minimum safety, getting irritated Kasan and asking what he expects him to do now, saying that our hero's group is strong and will survive somehow, deciding he will report only in 3 days to avoid being punished, appearing the next night a new mission from the system for our protagonist, feeling that something is going to happen and it seems like a main story episode. Our hero looking a bit anxious about the situation, realizing that the reason they are walking in circles is an illusion magic, finding it suspicious since the academy wouldn't put the students in such danger, wondering what the reason for that illusion magic being there could be, recognizing that he has many enemies and doesn't know who is behind this, suddenly spotting a cave and making everyone excited about the discovery, thinking then of taking shelter from the rain and lighting a fire to warm up, calling a strange noise to our protagonist's attention, right after, realizing then that they are not alone in that isolated place, a giant boar appearing to their misfortune right in front of the cave, warning one with great fear to all his colleagues that cave already has an owner and they have invaded its territory. Realizing that the beast lived nearby and got irritated by the invasion, the boar stomping its hooves on the ground ready to attack them all, saying our boy that the beast looks quite angry and Adela agrees, however asserting that it's just a big pig and they can defeat it, then calling the dragon and ordering to attack the monster immediately, knowing that Basil is a legendary dragon and cannot lose to a mere boar, being to his surprise the little dragon thrown far by the beast's attack. Our hero shouting for him to recover and get back to the fight soon, being shocked to have been defeated by a mere forest boar, watching Adela and yelling at Basil to get up and stop the drama, realizing that he won't manage and deciding to enter the fight herself, advancing with a quick step towards the furious monster, aiming directly at the heart of the boar with her sword in hand. Failing, however, her sword to pierce the thick skin of the monster, being shocked by the creature's resistance and not understanding anything. Noticing Adela that the boar was strengthened by magic, and that's why it is so strong. One feeling confused since there shouldn't be such a creature there. Realizing Han with no choice that the situation only gets harder by the moment, then calling for Basil and ordering to try to attack again with all his might, suggesting that he use the technique they had been practicing recently, having trained a skill to concentrate his strength on a single target, telling Basil to show everyone the result of his hard training, concentrating Basil his mana quickly for the final blow, then unleashing a powerful attack against the giant monster, hitting the attack squarely. The boar falls to the ground completely defeated, impressing the others with Basil's power even though he is a pup. Praising him, Natalie makes the little dragon all happy about it, saying our hero to forget about that for now, asking right after if they smell that scent in the air, salivating and saying that dinner that night will be roasted boar, wondering if he will have to prepare the beast since he was the one who hunted it, being the only one who studied anatomy and realizing he has no choice, regretting that he didn't study to end up preparing pigs in the forest. Some time passing after all the hunting chaos, finishing the preparation and asking if the campfire is ready, then placing the tasty meat skewers to roast over the fire, notifying a little while later that the food is finally ready. With water in his mouth, one takes the first bite of the meat, chewing the meat with his mouth full and totally happy with life. Everyone praising the food and saying it is delicious and better than expected, saying one that he thought he would go hungry but now feels he will survive. Deciding they should rest a bit while our hero goes to check the area, walking through the forest and wondering what they should do the next day, knowing it will take at least a week for the academy to receive the report, and in the meantime, they might encounter more monsters strengthened by magic. Suddenly calling him Adela and making him turn to see what she wants, explaining she couldn't sleep and went looking for him in the forest. Staring at her, our hero, while an awkward silence hangs in the air, Adela then suggesting they look at the starry sky together to pass the time, remembering that magic reflects each person's inner self, asking why he chose to be a tamer and making him think about the past but unable to tell the truth, while Adela jokes that Basil does everything alone. Our hero, thinking that magic seeks those who deeply desire it, and knowing that this is an unchangeable law of that mysterious magical world, wondering why Adela became so powerful, only losing to the protagonist. She telling him that when she was small, her whole village was suddenly buried, everything she knew disappearing in the blink of an eye without leaving traces, then walking alone through the destruction without understanding what happened. Others starting to gossip that there was a dark wizard in the village, but for her, none of that mattered since the people she loved were gone, being in the end the only survivor of that whole tragedy, feeling our hero that all the pieces of the puzzle finally fit together, understanding why she never mentioned her family and dedicated herself so much, now knowing the reason she had no other choice in life except to become impatient to gain the necessary power. Staring at her, our hero calling her to say something important, hearing a crack and wondering what that noise was. Suddenly the ground starting to crack right beneath their feet. Strange symbols appearing on the ground making him wonder if it's a message, the ground giving way completely, right after both falling into a deep, dark hole. Our boy getting up and feeling like his bones almost broke, asking Adela if he saw the thing shining on the ground, and he confirms, remembering the strange note that Li Han found in the secret passage, both wondering if that could be the work of the dark wizards, suddenly spotting something shining among the stones resembling a golem. To his total surprise, yet another mysterious cube, wondering if the monster woke up because of the cube, while Adela doubts the ground trembling again as the stones start to come together. A giant golem emerging right in front of both of them, telling Adela to hold his hand so they can escape from there. Him feeling confused by the request, but seeing her insist not to hesitate, pulling him and using a spell that makes a piece of stone move. Hitting the ceiling, the boy complains of the pain, irritating Adela who just saved him, she saying that she imagined the worst-case scenario for their situation, destroying the golem while the cave is about to collapse, claiming that the scenario is realistic and telling him to run faster. Our hero shouting at the camp for One and Natalie to get out of the cave, they managing to escape by a hair's breadth with the ground shaking all around Adela, telling everyone to stop and explaining that they can't escape the illusion. One asking what they will do now, especially with something chasing them, saying to Adela that the only option is to fight and asking them to stay calm. Thinking she finds the monster is much slower than it seems, launching with all her strength a stone attack directly at the golem. However, the attack doesn't even scratch it, leaving her shocked by its resistance. Questioning how they could defeat it without physical damage, our hero notices something. Thanking Adela then, as her failed attack gave him a great idea. Calling Natalie, he asks for help, but the girl thinks she is too weak. Questioning the decision, Adela reminds that stone monsters resist water magic. Even so, Natalie trusts the protagonist's plan and decides to help him. Then launching her water spell with all her strength at the creature soaking the golem, our hero says the plan worked perfectly. Then calling his new monster Ptera, he says it's now its turn to shine. At that moment, the little creature comes out of the protagonist's pocket and starts gathering mana for its attack. Suddenly, a cold aura envelops everything, and Adela feels a chill down her spine. Becoming shocked, she finally understands the true plan of our hero, for the idea was to freeze the water to break the stone golem from the inside. Soon the ice begins to expand and crack the entire structure of the monster. Thus, the golem shatters into 1,000 pieces at once. Explaining then that water expands when frozen, the young man praises his Terra, feeling relieved that his risky method actually worked in the end. Suddenly, his friends shout his name, totally worried, falling to the ground exhausted as he used all his mana in the battle. At that moment, Adela hears footsteps approaching in the darkness and stays alert, and to everyone's surprise, it was the veterans who finally found them. Looking at the destroyed golem, the protagonist says they have a lot to discuss. Then Kasan awkwardly bows in front of the protagonist and apologizes, saying he was wrong and only took the stone out of concern. Thinking of punching him, the young man wonders why a golem would be there. Sighing, he decides to let it go as it's not worth the effort. However, he changes his mind and orders the veteran to kneel to ease the tension. Kasan is completely shocked by the unexpected and humiliating request from the boy. Insisting with a threatening tone, the young man tells him to hurry and kneel. With no other choice, the veteran Kasan obeys and kneels on the ground, apologizing again, but the protagonist finds the request quite weak and pathetic. It turns out that due to the confusion, an emergency evacuation order was issued, as the magic used to defeat the golem was seen by everyone at the academy. Meanwhile, our hero thinks about investigating the golem but remembers the cube. Suddenly, Li Han appears and hands over the cube, saying he worked hard. At that moment, the protagonist remembers that in the novel, the third cube was with the Dark Wizards. Thus, Li Han concludes that the golem and the illusions were to protect the cube. Li Han then asks if they felt a strange magic in the forest. Adela concludes that the wizard who cast the magic must be nearby, but Han sensed the Dark Wizards approaching them, so he understands that both the cube and their lives are in danger. However, our hero thinks that this is the perfect moment to act, as a mission arises to protect the cube from the Dark Wizard Archend. Thinking that in the novel Li Han would create the group, the young man realizes a problem, and the problem is Archend, a dark wizard who will steal their cubes, for he is a master thief and can take the items without any difficulty. Preparing. Then, the protagonist knows that the enemy will act soon. Ending the meeting, he already thinks about whom to take for the mission. Walking alone, he reflects on who would be the best choice for the team. As the system recommended 6 people, he needs 5 more companions. Thinking about the novel, he decides to take Li Han, Adela, and Solia for sure. And for the last spots, he chooses Natalie and Won to complete the group. However, for some reason, the first person that came to his mind was Yoon Hyam. For in the original story, she only discovers about the cube 1 or 2 years later, but after all the time they spent together, he finally realized something. And that something is that Yoon is actually a complete genius in theology, also thinking of another unlikely candidate, which is Seymour. For since he helped him out of prison, he has kept quiet and to himself, knowing also that the necromancer has incredible potential. Thus, our hero knows he cannot afford to be betrayed by anyone. Thus, he decides that to survive he needs to prepare and change the original script, for if he brings the geniuses earlier, the final result will be very different. Now with the team decided, he trusts his choice and thinks about conducting an experiment. When the next day arrives, he goes to a deserted area to do a check, remembering that he entrusted Li Han with the task of hiding and protecting the cubes. He then wonders how Li Han set up such good traps in a place like that. After a while, he finally finds the cubes well protected and hidden, reflecting then that after so much struggle, he only managed to gather 3 cubes. Recalling that in the novel, the Dark Wizards used 5 cubes to extract power. However, he knows that the cubes are not just a source of power, as they come with a price. In the original story, Li Han sacrificed his sight to win the final battle. That's why our boy decides he has no intention of using the cube in the future, but he wonders if the item can be. used in other ways, and has an idea, deciding from that moment on that he will try to tame the cube in some way. And since the basis of taming is communication, he sits down to talk to the object, trying then to initiate a dialogue with the cube but receiving no response. Frustrated, he falls to the ground and complains that it's obvious this wouldn't work. But remembering his pride as a tamer, he decides he cannot give up, thinking then about the basics he learned in the manual about interest and communication. Desperately, he asks the cube to respond because he feels he's going to go crazy. However, he receives no answer because after all, it's just a stone. Suddenly, he remembers that his connection with Basil improved when he called him by name, so he tries to give a name to the cube, and the name he chooses is Square because the object is a square. Right after, he regrets it, thinking he's going crazy. But to his surprise, the affinity with the object suddenly increases. Shocked, the boy wonders if this is really happening, and several other affinity notifications appear next, not understanding how the affinity of a stone can increase like that. Then the system asks if he wants to tame the square at once. Without thinking twice, our boy presses the button to accept, confirming his choice with all the certainty in the world. In that moment, the cube reveals it has 100 mana, and he is shocked by the number. For not even Basil, who is a dragon, has as much mana as the cube. However, he realizes he forgot something very important in the midst of this, starting to process what just happened there, realizing he just tamed a cube, and thus began his secret project to tame all the cubes, noticing that taming the first cube was quite easy. However, from the second one, the difficulty increased much more, complaining then that the process is very slow and time-consuming. But with 3 monsters under his command, he has already surpassed an average tamer. That's why he knows he cannot complain, or others would call him ungrateful. Deciding then to take it easy and focus on his main objective, and upon taming the Void Cube, he discovers that each one has a unique ability. Happy with the discovery, he realizes that taming them was the best decision. Now he needs to carry the cube to increase his affinity with it. Suddenly, his dragon Basil lets out a loud shout and catches his attention. It turns out that in recent days, Basil has been training a new ability, and this ability is polymorphism, which allows him to change shape. In this, our hero realizes that the basic ability only changes the creature's color, and besides changing color, he can also adjust his jaw a bit, complaining then because a red dragon turning blue is quite dull. However, thinking that even small transformations can be useful, he then has an idea and asks if polymorphism can be used on other things. Since he needs to carry the cube, he cannot make it too obvious, then asking Basil to smooth the cube a bit to disguise it. In this, the little dragon is confused, but understands what his master wants him to do. Thus, the second cube was named Round, and the affinity increased. However, recruiting members for the rebel group was harder than he thought. Yahello was especially difficult to convince to join the team, but in the end, she ended up agreeing to join them on her own. Seymour also accepted the proposal without much resistance and joined the group, and thus, he finally completed the 6th main episode of the novel. Now time passes, and autumn arrives, bringing new challenges. In this, our hero is reading a book peacefully on the academy campus. Suddenly, someone calls him and asks what he is doing there alone, and to his surprise, it was Natalie who greets him with a kitten in her lap, explaining that she found it trembling in the rain near her house and took it in. Our hero is confused as she compares him to Basil, but they are different. Understanding then that there is no concept of pet here, seeing that the cat likes him, Natalie wonders if it's because he is a tamer, asking then if she is interrupting him, but he denies it right away. The boy thinks he was reading about artifacts to better understand the cubes, complaining then that the books are difficult and don't help beginners much. At this, Natalie offers to help him and shows a chart of brooms, explaining the types of brooms, and our hero is shocked by so much knowledge, telling that her father helped her make a broom once. Our boy then is surprised because he has a specialist by his side. Then she explains that the basic items are not hard to make and shows more, and points to a super expensive potion that leaves him quite impressed. Excited, our hero turns the page to learn even more, and to his surprise, the page was clearly about the mysterious cubes, thinking then that no matter how much she knows, she wouldn't know this. But suddenly Natalie looks and starts talking about the cubes, and Han is shocked, thinking she knows, regretting then not having pretended he didn't know anything, because the cubes are secret, and he spoke without thinking out of panic. Questioning how she knows about the cubes, he returns the question, thinking of telling her the truth. At this, Natalie reveals that her grandfather was the one who created the cubes, being left speechless by the bombastic and unexpected revelation, insisting Natalie asks again how he knows, and the young man wonders if he should tell the truth, remembering then that in the novel she was a very kind character and never got directly involved in the main storyline. believing that she wouldn't use the cube for evil but still feels wary, realizing then that he doesn't have time to think and needs to act fast because he needs information about the cube and can't miss the chance. Gathering courage, he reveals that he knows about the cube because he has one. Being shocked by the revelation, Natalie questions him about the artifact, telling then that her grandfather said the cube was stolen and was being used, remembering that her grandfather strictly warned her to keep it a secret, and that's why she was cautious, asking how he has one, but already having no way to hide. The boy decides to tell everything, realizing then that even exceeding the number of members he needs her, making then a proposal and asking her to use her knowledge to help them, because the dark wizards are after the cube and they need to protect themselves. As expected, Natalie accepts the offer and joins the group right away. Sharing then her information, she says that the cube was a source of energy and that her grandfather wanted to build a magical train instead of normal steam trains. At this, our boy realizes that the development of science there is quite different, and the magical trains are an example of something impossible to do with just magic, because to move a heavy train, a huge amount of magic was needed. So he had the idea to create an artifact capable of producing infinite magic. Coming from a family of craftsmen, his grandfather traveled to find materials, and finally he discovered a perfect mineral called luminous stone, explaining that a lot of ground luminous stone is needed to create just one cube, saying that each cube has a skill, but the boy already knew, and she, surprised, asks how, answering that it was just a guess, but thinking he can't reveal the truth, explaining that the cube gained skills to be controlled with restrictions, and that every magical artifact has a cost requiring compensation from the user, remembering then the living spirit cube that could resurrect the dead. Then Natalie says that the first cubes were just sources of energy and nothing more. However, our boy knows that things are no longer like that, and the purpose has changed, because just like Nobel's dynamite, the cube was used for evil, and the greed of the dark wizards ended up corrupting its original purpose. Happy with the conversation, our hero feels lucky to have gained so much information, thinking then that if Natalie hadn't appeared at the bank today, and if Yoon hadn't found that book in the library yesterday, then he wouldn't have learned anything important about the cubes. Suddenly Yoon appears and calls him, saying he finally found him, joking then that he was talking about the devil, and she shows up, wondering what a cat is doing in the gym, and he says it's just a cat, explaining that Natalie rescued him and asked him to take care of the creature. Saying that she is good with animals, Yoon asks if she can hold the cat. Doubting a bit, the boy sees the cat like her right away. All happy, the cat snuggles in Yoon's arms, who is completely enchanted. Then she starts laughing at his face and teases him for being replaced. Feeling all awkward about the situation, he tells her to stop laughing, saying that he liked the cat. Yoon notices that he also liked her, then asking if she can adopt the creature since it doesn't have an owner, thinking that maybe it's safer for the cat to stay with her and that a fortune teller is better at taking care of the creature than he and the others. Agreeing with the idea, Yoon celebrates the decision, all happy. Then hugging the kitten, she says that now they are a family, and the cat's name is Joy, and our hero thinks the name is really cute and lovely. Happy, Yoon greets little Joy, who meows all excitedly at her, thinking that a fortune teller and a cat are a great combination, asking why she was looking for him. Yoon suddenly remembers something and says she has big news to share with him, reminding him of his brother they met at the astrology contest. And the big news is that Han Si-hyuk has been appointed as a professor, besides already being an investigator of Ardell, and asks if the boy didn't know about the news. Yoon then says that his brother is now the new professor of magical manufacturing, and besides teaching, he also continues working at the ministry as an investigator, being surprised by how much she knows about his brother, revealing then that she is working as the investigator's assistant, realizing then that she has a pretty tough and busy life, questioning why she didn't tell him about her new job. Defending herself, she says she thought he already knew and doesn't need to share everything. Agreeing then with her explanation, but realizing that she doesn't have to tell him everything, still feels a bit hurt. Changing the subject, he asks about the investigator brother, and she explains that he is on an old case, and given how long he has been on the case, it must be a pretty complicated mystery to solve. Suddenly our hero hears a system notification and gets quite confused as a new side mission appears to help his brother solve the case. Meanwhile, Han Si-hyuk is organizing his things in his new office, reading a document on his clipboard about the archived case of Katablam concerning a village mysteriously buried for over a decade, and as the greatest prophet of the empire, He is obsessed with solving this mystery, thinking then that the prophecy is not just about seeing the future, but changing it. Because with his magic, he can gather clues and solve cases in the present, and with this method, he gained fame and acclaim as a great prophet, reaching a recognized position by both the ministry and the empire. And with his ability, he solved several mysteries of Ardell effortlessly. However, this archived case is different, and he feels trapped in a dead end because the Ministry of Magic tried to cover up the case, and no one dared to investigate. But he cannot leave the case aside because of a childhood prophecy, seeing there a future linked to the Katablam case and to other people, remembering the prophecy that haunts him to this day. In this vision, he saw himself and his younger brother, Han Si-ha. Now, at the academy, he has the chance to investigate the case with more freedom and swears he will uncover the truth about what happened 10 years ago. However, he feels restless because he fears what will happen after that. Meanwhile, our hero thinks about the side mission and reflects on the future, thinking then that the main episodes follow the original story. But suddenly a side episode about Katablam catches him by surprise, and remembering that this is the village Adela mentioned in the cave. Recalling that in the novel, Adela hated dark mages and thus eliminated Han Si-ha. Realizing then that he needs to find out why he was eliminated in the novel, irritated with the mission but curious, since he can share information with Adela. Suddenly someone calls him saying that investigator Han Si-hyuk is looking for him. Irritated for not having peace, the young man is told to go to the office. Arriving there, his brother informs him that they will go to the royal banquet together. Confused by the unexpected invitation, the boy doesn't understand anything. Explaining that it is part of the investigation, his brother tells him to gather information, saying for the boy not to worry, since he doesn't need to know the details, explaining that as a public figure, he would raise suspicions by asking about a case from 10 years ago, and that's why our protagonist will have to do this work. Being a talented student, he is the perfect disguise for the investigation, thinking then that this is a win-win situation for him, asking if the banquet is the type with dancing and festivities. Confirming, the brother tells him not to draw unnecessary attention, prohibiting him from causing trouble and leaving our boy irritated. Reflecting a bit, he admits that he might deserve this reputation. After some time, they arrive at the grand and luxurious royal palace, and inside, the nobles converse and enjoy themselves in the grand hall. Finally starting the royal banquet, the two brothers arrive together. Amazed, the boy feels as if he has been transported to a fantasy world, seeing the hall full of elegant guests and with impeccable decoration. Surprised by the chocolate fountain and the extravagant food, knowing, however, that he needs experience to blend in at a place like that, as he has spent his whole life just studying locked away in rooms and hospitals. Suddenly, someone calls him and asks if he is really Han Si-ha, and to his surprise, it was Professor Bruce Miller greeting him at the event. Surprised, the professor asks what he is doing in a place like that. Explaining, the boy says he is there as an assistant to investigator Han Si-hyuk, taking the opportunity to ask if he knows anything about the Katablam case. But the professor says he doesn't know much, and our hero feels disappointed. At that, Bruce questions him about his relationship with investigator Han Si-hyuk. The boy says they are not close, but that he respects and admires him greatly. Praising him, the professor advises him not to trust prophets too much. Feeling confused by the sudden advice, thanking him for the advice, but the professor laughs, saying he is just an old man rambling. Saying goodbye, Bruce tells him to enjoy the rest of the party, wondering why he suddenly mentioned his brother, thinking that if even the professor doesn't know about the case, he has no one to turn to. Not knowing anyone, he decides to choose someone based on appearance, turning his attention to find someone eye-catching who seems to hold a high position, having a plan in mind to get the information he needs. Suddenly, a woman surprises him by saying that banquets are not fun alone, asking why a young man like him is there looking so lost, realizing then that she is the perfect person for his investigation. To his surprise, the woman calls him by name, and he is completely shocked. Not knowing what to say, our boy just stares at her with a confused expression, wondering how she knows his name, but she just looks at him with a smile, asking if he is the son of Han Tae-soo, and the young man confirms, embarrassed, saying that he has grown a lot and asking if he came with his brother, being surprised because few people know that Si-hyuk is his brother. Then questioning about the investigation, he tells her about the Katablam case. At that, upon hearing the name of the case, the atmosphere becomes tense. Noticing the change in atmosphere, the boy becomes quite suspicious, asking if she knows anything about the case, saying that it is interesting he is asking, and the young man feels victorious, for his intuition was right and he finally found someone who knows something, questioning him if he is involved in the case, and our boy says he doesn't know, asking her to tell him what she knows. But the woman wants to ask a question first, asking if the Empire would save 1,000 commoners or him. Being a student of the academy who hasn't even graduated, who would they choose? Not understanding the question, she rephrases it to make it clearer. If 1,000 commoners had to die to save him, what would the Empire choose? Saying our boy that they would choose the 1,000, and she asks why, thinking that he is just a student and the others can contribute to the Empire. Asking if he would be worth 1,000 lives, and she agrees, finding him a bit inferior. Feeling uncomfortable with the comment, he asks what she thinks of herself. Thinking a bit, the woman says that the question is very easy, and with all confidence, she says that the Empire should choose her. Impressed, he praises her for her confidence, and she decides to give him advice, saying that 1,000 means nothing and advises him to let go of the case, then associating the case with the 1,000 people she mentioned, understanding that the case had about 1,000 victims and that she knows this, stating that his life is not worth 1,000 commoners, but the Empire sacrifices them to stop a dark wizard, understanding then why Adela was so afraid and resentful of the nobles. For to them, human life is worth less than that of an ant, saying then that this is simply outrageous. For this kind of thinking is revolting, stating that he is no better than 1,000 lives and questions her confidence to speak so lightly. Suddenly, a man approaches and asks where she has been all this time, complaining that she left him alone with those boring noble conversations. Shocked, the boy hears the man calling her, "Your Majesty," and she says the conversation was interesting. Addressing his father, the Empress praises him for the amusing son he has. Panicking, the boy realizes he didn't know who he was talking to, realizing that the highest authority of the Empire was right in front of him, and he remembers his speech about the value of life. Desperate, he wonders what the hell he said to the Empress. Staring at him with a smile, she decides to ask again, if 10,000 citizens or just she who should be saved. Then, already in another place, the conversation continues. Sitting on a sofa, the Empress waits for our hero's response. Our boy and his brother sit nervously in front of her. Calling for him, our hero responds with a faint voice. Smiling, she asks which part of him should she cut off, the arm, the leg, or the head, and asks for advice, thinking that the boy maintains the same attitude even after everything. Curious, the Empress thinks she has never seen anyone like him. Meanwhile, our hero is frozen in fear, begging to survive. Remembering his past life, he wonders how he can escape, for in the novel, the Empress had a minor role, but her description was striking, being an invincible ruler who would sacrifice 1,000 to get what she wants. In summary, she was a tyrant who eliminated anyone who irritated her, and our hero just irritated the most dangerous person in the entire empire. Suddenly, his brother apologizes and defends him, saying he is still a child, asking the Empress to give him a chance. The boy is surprised by his brother's defense, since one wrong word could cost him his head too. Questioning whether he deserves a chance, the Empress listens to Si-hyuk plead, and to everyone's despair, he asks the Empress to eliminate him gently. Irritated, our boy retracts everything he thought about his brother. At this, she starts to laugh and says she won't eliminate him for now, because she found him amusing and decides to give him a chance. Then asking for an hourglass from her servant. Bringing the object immediately, she gives him 3 minutes, for Han to convince her why she should let him live. Staring at the hourglass, he knows his life depends on what he will say. Running his hand over his neck, he thinks he is still in the place for now. Nervously laughing, our boy wonders how he will get out of that situation, for he needs to convince the Empress not to eliminate him for treason. With only 2 minutes left, he goes into total panic. At this, the mission window suddenly opens, realizing that the system is not joking and his life is in danger. For the status window always helps him with a hint when he is in danger. With time running out, he says he is an indispensable talent for Ardell. Doubting, the Empress hears that his intelligence is far superior, asking her to stop questioning him since time is running out. Shocked by the audacity, our hero's brother calls him crazy. Desperate, our boy thinks he needs to say what needs to be said, revealing that he discovered the details of the Katablam case, and she becomes interested. Denying the curse, he says the village was destroyed by a mishap with dark magic, then accusing her of having ordered the village to be buried for some reason, leaving the Empress surprised by what he said. Our boy realizing that this was a premise his brother hadn't imagined, for the files said they were buried because of a curse, thinking that if the premise was wrong, then no resident of Katablam was cursed, believing that the Empress had a purpose and the sacrifice of inferiors wouldn't be a problem, praising him for remembering her words, and asking him why he thinks she ordered the burial of the village. Explaining, our hero says she must have used someone trustworthy for the mission, and that this person must be one of the 5 counts who have served her for a long time. Clenching his hand tightly, he hopes he is wrong about his theory. Saying it hurts to say this in person, he then asks a question. and questions whether the leader of the secret operation to bury the village was their father, Count Han Tai-su. Remaining silent, the Empress just stares at him and asks how he found out, but our hero says it was just a guess, explaining that the case must have been covered up and the documents falsified, and now he understands why the secondary mission led him there. For in just 5 minutes, he discovered that the Empress was the mastermind, knowing, however, that he cannot corner her and needs a strategy, saying that with 5 more minutes, he would discover more, and asks if she isn't curious. At this, the crazy woman starts to laugh loudly. Praising then his boldness and honesty, she decides to spare his life, and as a reward for his courage, she hands him an envelope, also ordering that they end the investigation since the envelope contains secret documents without needing to report. Agreeing to the order, Si-hyuk hears the request that only he see the contents of the envelope. Also giving him a box, the Empress commands him to open it right away, saying that he should be grateful for the gift, but the boy is startled as he has never met an Empress. Thanking her awkwardly, the boy hears her joke about his life being short. Questioning, then the reason for the gift, our hero becomes thoughtful. Thinking that the Empress likes riddles, he responds that it is not for academic purposes, and concludes that the pen is a rare artifact that will help him in the case. Confirming then, the Empress says that the item will help him catch the Dark Wizard, saying that since he doesn't stop talking nonsense, he will surely find a use for the item. Then the next day, already at his family mansion, telling his father that the Empress spoke very well of him, he is quite impressed and asks what happened since the Empress doesn't usually praise anyone. Explaining, our hero says he went to help his brother and ended up talking too much. Shocked, the father hears that he disrespected the Empress and did not recognize her. Turning away, he cannot believe his son made such a big mistake. Saying that the boy managed to get away with it, his father is surprised. Then asking the father about the investigation, he tells him about the Catablom case, regretting that his brother is still obsessed with the case. Tightening his cane tightly, he seems quite irritated with the situation. Realizing that he can no longer hide the truth, the father decides to tell everything, revealing that 1,000 innocents were eliminated by the Empress's order, and that because of this, no detail was recorded and the case was archived, but saying that this is not all and that there is something even more important, and that this secret is known only by him and the Empress completely. In this, Si-hyuk analyzes the documents that the Empress gave him at the banquet and realizes that it is an old file that only the ruler kept. Upon reading the content, he notices that the descriptions are completely different, revealing in the document that a dark wizard infiltrated the village of Catablom, and as identification was difficult, a unit was sent, but ended up eliminated, intending then for the dark wizard to use the village as a sacrifice for his magic, and if not stopped, even greater harm would be inevitable for all. Starting to feel Si-hyuk's hands tremble with this information, for the Empire had to choose between 1,000 villagers and the safety of all, and the decision was to bury all the villagers with his father being the executor, wondering then why he feels this way, even knowing the truth. With a feeling of disgust and revolt, he tries to calm down and decides to finish reading the records to see if he finds more information, discovering to his surprise that there were actually 2 survivors, wondering then how there can be survivors in a buried village, and to his astonishment, one of the survivors was Adela Stivia. Recognizing Si-hyuk, she as his office assistant and a promising student, realizing that this complicates everything since she has no family to return to, fearing then that if she discovers the truth, she might seek revenge. And now he understands why the case had to remain unsolved. Suddenly, upon reading the name of the second survivor, he is shocked, for the name in the document leaves him completely speechless at that moment. Revealing then that his father was warned of the tragedy in the village by a prophet, and that one of the survivors from that village would eliminate his son one day. That's why he decided to go personally to see the situation with his own eyes. And after everything was over, he saw a child alone amidst the destruction. Looking then at the child, his heart fills with sadness and pain. For even after everything, the child was still alive and crying. Knowing that it was the child of the prophecy and fearing revenge, he erased their memories. Thinking then of a way to keep an eye on him, he decided to take him with him, giving him the name Han Si-hyuk and raising him as his own son. Now Si-hyuk knows that he is the second survivor of the tragedy, and our protagonist asks if he regrets it, and the father confirms that he does, but not for having destroyed the village, but for not having eliminated the 2 survivors. For they could one day eliminate his true son, Han Si-ha, and that was his greatest mistake. Outraged then, the boy says, "How could someone think like that?" Ignoring him, the father says he would make the same choice again to protect him, but that the best option of the past has become the worst of the present. Regretting not being a prophet, the father says he couldn't foresee this. Then going to a cabinet, he takes a sword and hands the sword directly to his son. Being the sword of earthquake, waves a powerful weapon. Reacting to the perception, the sword can split the land, but the young man doesn't understand why he receives it. For one day he may have to use the same sword that buried the village. Calling him then, the father looks at him with a serious and worried expression, and advises him not to get close to Han Si-hyuk and Adela at all. Accepting the sword, our hero hesitates as he knows the situation is delicate. For with the documents, he knows his brother has already discovered the whole truth. But the real problem is Adela and what she will do upon learning everything. Questioning whether he should tell her everything. At once, however, he decides not to, and that he needs to keep the secret for now. For her entry into the academy, and her efforts were because of the incident, and everything she has done so far has been in pursuit of revenge for her family. That's why he decides to wait until she is ready to hear the truth, and his only choice at the moment is to continue lying to her always. After some time, and our boy is in his room wondering if he should take the sword to keep it safe, for it cannot be corrupted or its power weakens over time, and even weakened with despair, it can still destroy a dormitory. However, he knows the sword has already buried 1,000 innocent lives and wonders what the point is of keeping it clean and shiny, for to him, the weapon already reeks of the blood of all its victims. Suddenly, one appears and greets him all excited, telling that everyone was worried when he was taken away and brought home. Back in the dormitory, one hands a note to our hero who wonders what it is, explaining then that Adela asked him to deliver the note to him. Reading the note, our boy sees that she wants to see Basil and thinks it's just an excuse to see him. Smiling at the thought while the little dragon watches him curiously, then teasing Basil, who seems excited to see Adela. And later that night, he takes his partner to the front of the dormitory. Adela then appears all happy and hugs the little dragon. Asking if she is already satisfied, the young man is prevented from leaving, inviting him then to a cherry blossom festival happening nearby. Walking through the festival, he admires the beauty of the trees, telling Adela that he wished he had come last year but couldn't because of training. Teasing her, our hero hears her ask why he couldn't like that, thinking that she seems like the type to uproot trees but admits he finds her cute. Realizing then the unexpected compliment he made to her, and questioning if he is going crazy, or if he has finally lost his mind while Adela asks why he is grumbling, then asking if the legend of the petal that grants a wish is real, and he confirms, all excited. She runs to try to catch one of the falling petals. Watching her, he thinks he can no longer control his expressions around her, remembering the terrible truth that her city was annihilated by his father's order, knowing that if she discovers the truth, she will be completely devastated by the news. For despite seeming strong on the outside, Adela is quite fragile on the inside, and instead of blaming others, she would probably blame herself for not noticing the enemy, thinking that their relationship has become a problem, since as a failure, her revenge would be easier, but now it is too late to turn back. Suddenly, Adela calls him all happy, for she finally managed to catch a petal, asking what wish she will make and thinking that, if it weren't for the event 10 years ago, saying Adela that the wish is a secret and that he should also try to catch one. Left speechless, our hero just stammers without being able to say anything. Staying silent for a moment, he thinks about what he will say, while the sound of the wind in the trees seems to echo his confused thoughts. Calling her then by name, saying in a serious tone that he has something important to tell her, and while he thinks about how to tell the truth, he remembers his days in the library, for he spent a lot of time pondering how to tell her everything, and now he has finally made his decision about what to do. Staring at him, Adela asks what he wants so much to say to her. With a sad smile, our boy decides to test the waters first, thinking of asking if she would forgive someone close who ruined her life. However, lacking the courage to ask, he invites her to the festival next year. All happy, Adela asks him to take good care of her next year too, understanding that guilt is the punishment he, as Han Taiso's son, must receive. But knowing that even if their relationship ends, there is something he needs to do, and that something he needs to do is focus on the main story. For to survive in this dark world, our hero must complete the main story, remembering that Li Han, Adela, Solia, and the squad advance in the fight against the wizards, but knowing everything, if he takes the lead, the chances of everyone surviving increase. Writing in his diary, he thinks that very soon in the timeline of the novel, knowing that the Dark Wizards will invade the Ardell Academy with everything they have, knowing that even with his presence changing events, what must happen will happen, realizing that the wizards may already know about the cube and anticipated the attack, leaving the situation dire. Since the Dark Wizards are strong, it would take a miracle to defeat a high-ranking one. and for the young death squad to protect the cube, dozens of miracles would have to happen. Remembering that in the original story, the main characters tried to protect the cube, risking everything. However, in that process, Solia ended up dying, and Adela was gravely injured, and to make matters worse, Li Han became completely desperate with everything, swearing then that he needs to prevent this situation, and fortunately, he knows how. For the Dark Wizard's ultimate goal is to activate a tool that amplifies magical power. Sucking the power from the cube, the heart of the machine aims to use this force to dominate everything. With this in mind, our hero has a spark and realizes what his true plan must be, needing to find the heart of the machine that amplifies the cube's power to then destroy it. For the Dark Wizards took 10 years to create the tool and cannot make another one anytime soon. But the plan that seems simple leads him to a very crucial problem, and the problem is how he will manage to explain the whole situation to the other students. For if he says there is a heart of the machine, everyone will think he is a lunatic or a spy, so he decides to think calmly and devise a new, more effective plan. Since explaining won't work, he decides that showing directly will be much easier to convince them, and for that, he needs to start by discovering where the heart of the machine is hidden, remembering that the original story mentioned the location but in a very vague way. However, there was a clear hint that said the item was at the base of the Dark Wizards. With that, he decides he needs to find and attack first the base of the wizards known as NGC, and confidently, he then swears that the first attack is the guaranteed victory against those bastards. Meanwhile, at the Dark Wizard's base, discussing their losses as many who went after the cube died, complaining, one of them says that if they weren't hiding in the Empire, they would have finished everyone off. Asking the leader what the main reason for the failure is, a wizard says there are many variables, but he points out that the brat Han Si Ha is the most problematic, because with him, the cube became harder to grab. Another wizard suggests eliminating our hero, but is warned that the Kastika family would annihilate them if they did that. Moreover, they know that Han Si Ha is cautious and may be hiding the cube even from his friends, and if that is the case, no one on the continent would find the item, and they no longer have extra time, for now that a certain Abaddon has awakened, they need to gather the cubes as quickly as possible. With the situation tightening, one of them has a new idea, then suggesting that they lure Han Si-hyuk, our protagonist's older brother. However, another doubts he will cooperate since his father was the count who annihilated the Dark Wizards, saying it would be better to finish everyone off, but is called an animal by another, remembering the leader of Lord Abaddon's promise to create a society where they are not ignored, and says they need to decide which ideals their new world will follow. With a smile, the mage agrees with her leader's words, saying that their revolutionary ideal does not need to be stained, for it does not need to stain everything with the blood of enemies and companions. So with her decision made, she swears she will capture our hero alive and ally with his brother, Han Si-hyuk. It happens that Han Si-hyuk is the Count's son, but also a thorn in the family. However, his great prophetic power has made him a treasure of the magic department, doubting, a wizard. But Sepia reveals that great power comes at a price, and the nightmare will begin. Then recounting that Han Si-hyuk's power was planted by her long ago, for that is a power that will lead him to his own destruction in the end. And because of that, it doesn't matter if he wants to or not, Sepia guarantees that he will join them anyway. Meanwhile, in Natalie's workshop, our hero gathers all his friends. Questioning one of them why our boy brought them together, he knows that the NGC zone is the villain's stronghold, thinking that the exact location was never revealed in the original story, and so his best approach now is to follow the story step by step. Everyone is shocked when our hero says they will invade the NGC zone. Expecting this reaction, the boy explains that it's better to attack first. Moreover, he reminds them that they have the cube, and the fight against the wizards is inevitable. Yoon finds his attitude bold and cool, telling the girl to be quiet. Adela says she is talking too loudly. Grabbing a map, our hero says Natalie's question about entering the base was good, then explaining, Seymour says that to enter the base, a type of dark energy is needed, being a power that only dark wizards feel and use called magi, then suggesting to learn black magic since he is good at it, but Adela threatens him, asking if he wants to get beaten by her hands. Receding, he says it's possible to use the energy with an item for a short period, then asking our hero where they can find such an item, pointing to a specific place on the map. Solia shows the location, being the old Arcanant mine in the northern region of the Kastika territory, also known as the Obsidian Mine because its mineral manipulates magi energy. Moreover, the energy in the mine was so strong that common people called the place cursed. Asking Solia if she knows anything about the mine, she says her father might know. Feeling relieved to avoid black magic, Seymour hears Solia decide they should find her father. checking something. The boy thinks of a good time for them to go, then calling for Solia and asking which class she is willing to skip. Already on the road, the two travel by cart to the Arcanant territory. Getting nervous about skipping class for the first time, she hears it's just a dance practice. Complaining about skipping class, Han thinks she is cowardly since it's not the end of the world. Trying to comfort her by saying she won't get caught, he thinks he has skipped an entire semester. Continuing their path, the cart follows the dirt road, and finally arriving at the old Arcanant territory, Solia is amazed, telling that she lived there when she was little and feels good to be back, thinking that even with the family bankrupt, the territory is still vast. Asking where her father is, the girl points to a path. To our hero's shock, Solia points to a poor cabin on the mountain, finding it strange that even bankrupt, her family lived in such a place. Feeling embarrassed, Solia says she only found this out recently since she doesn't come here much, then explaining that he is there because of a job with the Castica family. Understanding, our boy realizes that losing everything was humiliating for her father. Before they climb the mountain, Solia invites him to take a stroll in the market, telling that the strong point of the place is trade since the land is not good for planting. Soon thinking that if there is trade, there must also be industry around, revealing then that Natalie's family artifact factory is right there. However, Solia is confused as it seems the factory is no longer operating. Pointing to an empty place, she says she was sure there was a factory there. Suddenly, Solia starts to run, and our hero asks where she is going. Out of breath, she stops and says something very strange is happening. Reaching her, the boy asks what is happening to her, then saying that the street is empty, but there used to be several shops there, wondering how the largest market in the territory can be so empty, then suggesting that Solia ask a woman passing by. Approaching, Solia hears the woman ask what she needs, then asking where the Potion Street and the other herb shops are. The woman says she hasn't heard that name in a long time and asks if she has been away for a long time, then explaining that all the merchants and shop owners have left because they could no longer live in that worthless land and decided to flee, then saying that it's all the new count's fault who turned everyone's life into hell, charging abusive fees to set up stalls and sabotaging shops, preventing any business. Realizing then, Solia understands who the woman is talking about. It turns out that her family lost everything because of the long war of the Empire, as the war against the Dark Wizards affected all the great houses, and their situation worsened even more due to a great famine at the time. It was then that someone reached out to help them, Baron Dwayne. With the excuse of investing in the territory, he gradually took control of everything. And as the war and famine made financial help necessary for Count Arcanant, grabbing the sweet offer from the Baron without hesitating for a second. But when he finally realized, there wasn't a single corner that wasn't the Baron's. And as Dwayne controlled trade and the military, he stabbed him in the back, explaining to Solia that she only learned about everything recently, as she was very young and thought the house went bankrupt due to a bad deal. From the beginning, Dwayne had ulterior motives and planned to swallow everything, and after taking the title of Count, he expelled all the merchants. Seeing Solia indignant, our boy understands her feelings and her father's point of view. For her father had no choice but to give up everything to protect his people. Then saying to our hero that he found her story strange from the start, for a territory that size, he should have received a lot of money. Thinking then, Solia, that things were tough and there was no other choice. And she always saw her father desperately wanting the land back, but she never knew what to say and felt frustrated with the whole situation. With tears in her eyes, she asks our hero what she should do now, then saying that she is very angry and wants revenge for everything. And she also wants to take back the territory as the people there are suffering. For the beautiful trading district is in ruins and only barren land remains, and feeling powerless as she can do nothing to change the situation. Trying our hero to console her, but she pulls back and says she needs to hold herself together, for she is just a third-year student and has no right to say anything. Apologizing then for venting about her personal problems, saying they should go see her father, but our hero interrupts her and says that can wait, asking then if she wants help with her revenge. Meanwhile, elsewhere, a man observes Count Dwayne at his desk, asking the Count what Solia Arcanant is doing there in the territory, and becoming furious upon learning that she is asking about the events from 7 years ago. Irritated, he calls them both little mice and seems quite bothered, the Count getting annoyed that she is digging up things from the past, suggesting the man take care of her, but the Count says to leave her alone as she isn't worth it, thinking that the land was taken by force, but he has a contract to prove it, and even if they cry and scream, nothing will change the current situation. For he has heard of Solia, knowing she is a talent with many sponsors and wonders why she would give up her career. Deciding then not to worry, he tells the man to just scare her a little. An hour later, the calm of the Count's office is interrupted as a man bursts in, shouting desperately for the Count's name. Rising, the Count asks what all this commotion is about. His eyes widen in shock at the scene he sees. For the man he sent to scare Solia is being dragged in, and our hero enters the room. In a threatening tone, our boy says he came to see the Count. Shocked, the Count stares at our hero's expression in front of him. Then explaining, our hero says she is a student who takes down monsters with just a staff. Thinking that his subordinate underestimated the boy or was foolish, he asks the reason. Then becoming furious at our protagonist's audacity, provoking Solia, he asks if her plan was to hide behind a boy and calls her pathetic. But our hero protects her and says the pathetic one there is his business skills. Leaving Solia surprised, our boy says he came to give the Count some advice. Irritated, the Count accuses him of being a noble brat and arrogant. Our hero then says he will soon find out which family he comes from, and that he simply wants to see the contract the Count has. Approaching the Count's desk, he makes his main objective clear, and says he came to check with his own eyes if the agreement was legitimate. Then a guard asks how he dares, acting so rudely as a mere student. Telling the guard to lower the spear, the Count says he doesn't want trouble, and tells the guard to prepare as they will see the contract. Sitting down to read, our hero thinks that the Count, as a traitor, must be quite cunning. Finishing the reading, he thinks that legally he is right even if it is an unfair contract. Placing the contract on the table, he says he read it carefully, however. According to imperial law, contracts under duress are invalid. Shocked, Solia and the Count hear our hero's unexpected revelation. Irritated, the Count then asks how he can prove the duress. Annoyed by the accusation, Solia tells him to shut up immediately. He exclaims that what he does on his lands is none of her business, and he shouts for her to get out of there as she is just making unfounded accusations. Ordering a guard to arrest him, the Count is interrupted as our boy grabs the Empress's pen, and when the Count sees the object, he seems to recognize it right away. It turns out that this is a very expensive pen with a familiar crest. To his astonishment, that is the imperial crest engraved on the pen. Remembering having seen the crest in the capital, he has no more doubts. And since the Empress rarely gives such items to non-relatives, there is only one possibility. Thinking that our hero is the prince, he becomes completely terrified. Suddenly a guard bursts in, shouting that there are problems outside, and to the Count's horror, the knights from the Castica territory have arrived. Panicking, he doesn't understand why they are there. For the Blood Count Han Tai-su is known for his ruthless campaigns, and for him to send an army so far can only be to protect the prince. Questioning if he is thinking of war, the Count hears our hero confirm. Our boy reveals that he said he was kidnapped, and the Count freaks out immediately. Desperate, he realizes he has gotten himself into a scandal involving the kidnapping of a prince. Our hero then says that the person he should apologize to is not him. As a man enters the room, the Count recognizes him right away. The man says it has been a long time since they last saw each other. Being the Count of Arcanant, he glares at Dwayne and accuses him of treason and theft of his territory. Sweating profusely, Dwayne calls him pathetic and says that a scandal won't change anything. Agreeing with him, the Count says that Dwayne is right, but he threatens him, saying he will take the land back using coercive means, reminding Dwayne that those were the same words he used 7 years ago. Irritated, the Count says he made the land prosperous, but Arcanant shouts that this is nonsense. But Solia's father says that half the people left, finances worsened, and the markets are in ruins. Stumbling and stuttering, Dwayne says that this is all nonsense. Then grabbing a dagger from his desk, he threatens Solia to make everyone leave, threatening to end her if they take one more step. Seeing everyone frozen, the Count says that finally they are quiet. However, Solia activates a powerful light magic. In that moment, a great flash of light occurs in the room, and the Count is thrown far away by the impact. Calling him an idiot, our hero says she is not a helpless little girl. In disbelief, the Count is astonished by the girl's power, and she says it is no wonder the Count always looked down on her, since she always bowed and obeyed. But now things are different. It turns out our hero taught her that staying silent is not always the answer, telling him to return the land because he is not worthy of governing it. Our boy then shows a new contract that cancels the previous one. Reading the contract, he sees that he must return the land and all rights and disappear from there, and reminds him that contracts under duress are invalid. Then he orders the Count to sign the new contract.